everyone, and welcome back to the Project Manga Podcast, where we cover Ayashimon, Sakamoto Days, Mission Yozakura Family, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, and One Piece, week to week. Back this week for Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 24, I'm Knox.
And I'm Mellow Yenis.
And of course, before we get into the discussion tonight, we'd like you to take a look in our description section down below. That's going to be where you can follow us on all of our individual social media accounts like Twitter, join our online communities like Discord, listen to the Project Manga Podcast wherever you normally listen to your podcasts, and there's going to be ways to support what we do here by checking out our Patreon. Also, while you're down there, there's going to be timestamps so that you can conveniently navigate yourself throughout the video and skip the segments for the series that you're not yet caught up in. And while you're down there, slap a like on the video and subscribe, because we upload weekly and we're constantly talking about manga. But getting into the discussion tonight, Weekly Shonen Jump 24, starting with Ayashimon, Chapter 23, Extinguisher. How do we feel? Yeah.
I really liked this one because we were kind of on the fence. We were like, we feel like it's a transformation. We weren't entirely sure. And we were talking about like how in most manga, cloning is usually like a lesser strength copy than the original, which is typically how they keep it being balanced,
Right.
with copycat characters and stuff. I thought it was really interesting that they made like, yeah, this is a full strength copy, but extremely short time duration.
Yes.
Like Smash Ball, Super Smash Bros. Length duration. Where it's just like, okay, you need to like finish this fast.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna go full Animorphs and you're gonna be stuck as a hawk.
That was a cool comparison. Oh my god, and then the Animorphs comparison. Holy shit. Yeah, that's really good. Usually, like you were saying, you have a clone technique and it is weaker for those reasons to keep it balanced. But this is one where the clone isn't, of the person casting the spell. You know what I mean? Like usually you get like a Naruto shadow clone jutsu, or you get like a Meliodas physical clone through Lost Vein. But like this is like, no, I'm making myself a clone of a completely different character. Not only is it a short lifespan, because it is a full, complete perfect clone, so it's a short lifespan, but also there's a psychological detriment if you stay inside of the form too long. So it just feels good all the way across the board and fresh.
Yeah, I really liked it, and like it makes sense for Tamagawa, like the way he fights. He never wants to fight even. He never wants to fight fair. He'd rather people, lead people while being genteel all the time. But like, he's a vicious dude.
Yeah. Plus, to the point you just made, he doesn't really, he likes to use other people to achieve his goals. You know what I mean? He is a director. He is a, manager. He is a, higher ranking official inside of an organization. So he has a bunch of subordinates that he's used to bossing around and getting all of his goals accomplished for him through the means of other grunt workers, essentially. So it makes sense that he would have a yojutsu or an ability or whatever this is that would be, I'm borrowing the strength of someone else to accomplish my goals. So it all fits in with the character that we've gotten so far.
Yeah, with how organizational he is. I like that because he's like, yeah, no, we dug up the whole thing. He lost a dopo. He should be terrified of him. He's on the run, right? Like, that's why he's been laying low for so long. Has to be that he's scared of him. I love that it's just like, yes, I'm going to scare him. I'm going to use the full force of something that totally smoked him last time. Normal people would give up. Well, Maruo is damaged. Okay, He's not a normal dude. He has been cracked, forced to be built different. That kind of thing. Like,
right. And we were talking last review about how, this whole idea to use Akari Dopo as like a psychological weapon against Maruo to kind of dig into his insecurities and his trauma, to give him a foe that he historically has been whooped by in an attempt to break his spirit. We were talking about how that's possible, what research he was doing on Maruo to kind of get the information that he needed to know to turn into Akari Dopo. And then we get the scene that talks about how he has, secretaries, and other kinds of subordinates that, do things like tricking guards, nosing around. That's easier than taking candy from a baby to a kitsune. So we were talking about like how influential this organization is in regard to gathering intel and using, tanuki and kitsune to transform into other people, to put ears on walls and get information out anyone across the whole underworld. So now we know that that's how he acquired this information about Dopo, because like we were saying last review, underworld information probably spreads really quick with an organization like Corey Hotels in the mix. So it's really cool to get that confirmation in this chapter.
Absolutely. And they even mention it. They're like, yeah, Dopo has been flashy. He doesn't seem to like, he's not a quiet dude. They all say this on like page 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like touching on the whole Naruto clone thing. I liked the part 3, like the third panel. You were saying the words right off at tricking guards nosing around. I like how it's just a log tied to a tree with a leaf on top of it, and I'm like, yeah, she out.
Wait, what does that mean?
Oh, it means they grabbed the secretary, right? But she already escaped.
Oh, because of a substitution jutsu. Okay, wait a minute. I see it now. It's real ninja shit. I didn't even notice that. I didn't even know what I was looking for or what I was looking at all in that panel. But that makes all the sense in the world.
Kotone's men know either. They're probably they stare at that log and they probably see like that secretary in her little hotelier outfit.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. Yeah, that's a good spot. I definitely did not notice that. But it's cool though, because the fight is tight, because Maruo's like, hell yeah, I'm gassed up instead of psychologically broken. This is really exciting because this is the dude that whooped me last time. I just got some brand new training. I'm feeling like a badass right now. What better way to practice it than against a fucking Akari Dopo clone? You know what I mean? I've been on my firefighter shit, you know what I mean, for however long, and now I'm ready to actually put it to good use. So he's super excited about it, and that makes a lot of sense. And it looks like that shook Tamagawa and was like, wait a minute, no, this tactic usually works like right away. Didn't you just get scraped by this dude like fucking a week ago? Not even, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you should be shaking in your fucking boots right now, bro. What the fuck? So he's just like, nah, fuck it. We turning it up to 1,000,000, and tries to get him with this crazy blast. And he just fucking punches through it with this crazy, like, double page spread of him showing the fruits of that training. And he's just got it down. It's like this attack is just, like, not effective at all, which is really exciting to see. And I thought it was going to be like, all right, well, there goes your strategy. Steals off him in the splash page on 12. And then it's like, yeah, I'm tight now. It ain't gonna work. You know what I'm saying? And then he's like, fuck it. Puts the mask on, dude. And I'm like,
yes,
no way, because we didn't get to see this from the true Akari Dopo. So it's interesting that we're getting it through this situation with the clone, but they did say you get to copy the entire, slew of abilities of the person that the whole kit and caboodle of who you're copying. So that's like really interesting that I don't think I've ever seen a final form reveal, or a true form reveal in this way before, where it's like
that wasn't the OG.
Yeah, that wasn't the OG. It's like, yeah, like we knew that we were going to eventually see this from Akari Dopo, but like to get it from Tamagawa while he's disguised as Akari Dopo is like a completely new situation that I had not considered, and I don't think that I've ever seen it before executed like this. It's really cool.
There is this moment that I really liked in here. There's 2 parts. The one on 10-11, which is the double spread, the way he's doing like his choreography against the flames and like doing the smackdown. It reminds me of Saint Seiya.
Oh wow!
Like I remember there was like Saint Seiya where like he's going through like super speed, right? Like he could like punch super fast, and so they'd have like multiple forms of him in a row for one of their splashes, and they would do like the multiple like kata like poses, and they'd have like that kind of like glittering, motes of light in the background, because Saint Seiya was all about like the lights in the foreground and background.
Oh sure.
Like shining gold cloth abilities kind of stuff, like it was Kamen Riders with like less Michael Bay explosions.
Oh man, I haven't read Saint Seiya at all, but our good buddy Kichi is a big Saint Seiya fan. He's been telling me to read that for a couple months now because he just went through the whole series, and some of the spreads that he would send into the group chats and shit looked so beautiful, and they are kind of akin to what we're seeing here on page 10 and 11. So that's a cool spot, cool comparison. But I wonder what is the light explosions things like representing in this double page spread on 10 and 11. That's just like the points of impact, maybe, where he's like, those are his punches thrown in past tense.
I was thinking of the Suksma Sarima, right? like because when you see like the vision of his body and like all these little motes of light, he's like it's all tangled, and so like the lights aren't connected, it's all mushed up together, and then like they still has like the lights, and he has like the more untangled like the lines of light. So I imagine
Sure.
that like that is the essence that is like broken down, like shorn away from like the concept of fire or like the cold blast wave
Mm-hmm.
of like heat stealing fire that he's shot out to him.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
is just energy, right? Like it's leftover dissipating energy as he is denying the concept, as they said.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's right. That was a really cool way to put it too. Deny the concept. It's like this is what this thing does. The punch you throw is going to, put a fucking minus on that. You know what I mean? It's like you're now deleting the idea of what that spell was going to be.
well, it's actually like disbelief is really like the bane of Ayashimon and yokai, right?
Hmm, hmm.
They were talking about like, hey, this is the modern age. We have lights. We're not afraid of the dark corners of the room. We're not afraid of the ceiling. Sorry, Ten, you're not going to scare people by popping out of the ceiling anymore. People aren't afraid of that thing. We no longer believe in you, and that's as good. Apathy to an idea is the same as denying the concept. So
Mm.
like a Yashimon, Tamagawa was saying they are anxiety, they are fears made flesh. The I am despair manifest on the last page. He says that a Yashimon's merely a concept made real. So, like, by suspending your own disbelief in their existence or the effectiveness of their abilities, literally destroys them. You have to believe in them for them to be effective.
Nice. I love that. That was very well said.
And then a small visual thing that I wanted to point out was on the bottom of page 14 and a little bit of page 13. Um, After Dopo Tamagawa clone gets smoked
Yeah.
and he starts hitting his like, it has like the badum um, on page 13 where his heartbeat starts to
Hmm.
quicken.
Yeah,
He's
to give like
reaching
a
his like,
visual indicator of him reaching his limit. Yeah.
yeah, look at his eyes. He has massive bags on his eyes, not unlike a raccoon,
A
because he's a
raccoon?
Tanuki. A
Oh, a
raccoon,
raccoon.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was like,
Um,
wait a minute, what was that? Did I miss that? No, I'm just
nope.
dumb. Yeah.
Uh, yeah. But yeah, his eye bags remind me of a raccoon, which is what Tamagawa's like real form. So it's like a little bit of a peek
That's cool.
back. He's on the edge of being himself. Then he sees like the Corey hotels. He stiffens his resolve. He's like, you know what? I gave my all for this. The belief that my people would have a home, that my kind would have a place to stay no matter what, and I'm
Right.
willing to die for that. I'm allowing to like truly give his all by letting his own personality be sucked up by the cloning transformation into Dopo.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's like ultimate sacrifice. You're a complete scumbag, but at least you're committed. Like a respectable villain,
Right.
so to speak.
Right. And it creates an interesting situation too, because we know that Maruo has been having this like, little training arc inside of him and his teacher in the background while other plot developments were kind of being unraveled. And now we're seeing the fruits of that and we're really hype. It's really exciting. He's super effective
Mhm.
against this fire. So now we are, really excited that he's like, achieved this state and we're hype about that. But then to instantly go, that's not enough to get the job done still. And Akari Dopo clone Tamagawa pulls out his own, trump card up the sleeve, new advantage that kind of makes Maruo's fruits of his training seem like they're not enough, so it raises that tension back up. You know what I mean? But then also there's a massive detriment inside of what Dopo Akari is doing to him, to his own self. You know what I mean? So it just keeps the uncertainty so high in what's going to happen next, because it's like, well, even Maruo coming fresh out of a training arc with new vigor and like new, lease on life isn't enough to get him past the first character obstacle that he runs into, at least not instantly, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's like, now what does he fucking do? He just kind of flexed what he learned in the last week or two, and it wasn't enough. But then also, now we have to deal with the psychological burden that Akari or that Tamagawa is putting on himself with the Akari Dopo cloning. So now it's just like, I have no idea how this is going to conclude at all, which is really important for Ayashimon, because a lot of people were complaining about how his fighting style is played out or trite or whatever. It's like, you're just going to punch everybody, you're going to punch through everyone like Saitama or Mashle. We've seen that a million times. You have to have more creative ways to resolve conflicts inside of a meathead punching machine main character like Maruo, and we can see that Yuji Kaku is considering all of that and clearly has plans for it, because the uncertainty levels are really high inside of this conflict resolution, or the potential conflict resolution that's going to be coming in the next chapter or two. So I'm loving the decision making and direction inside of Ayashimon so far, and I've been loving it. Like we've been saying, like every single time we have what could even be considered a complaint in Ayashimon, a chapter or two later, Yuji Kaku addresses it.
Yeah, I think it's just more of like, it's a newer series. Just give it time to cook. Like, and it's like,
it's been cooking well, in my opinion.
I think it's well braised.
Yeah, well braised.
Well braised, very, very well seasoned, an experienced hand, a little salt.
I love
that. It's got a lot of flavors in there, and then like, I really like the Hitorima like reveal, like his masked form is really interesting.
Yeah.
So
like, so different than what I thought it was going to be. Like, I have no idea what this black water is.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about what's going on right now, but I'm here for it, you know?
Yeah, because he was talking, it's like, you know, Hitorima extinguishes flames of the night. It could be just the wind, but a human anxiety isn't easily assuaged? Yeah. So I'm thinking is like, what extinguishes flame? And so water immediately comes to mind, and also like, what consumes the light? Darkness. So like a combination of darkness and water.
Dark water.
Yeah.
Oil so attack.
Ironically counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But like, that's kind of the vibe I'm going like, that I'm picking up. Plus Hitorima were like supposed to be like, they would hang out in like the like Ishikawa prefecture, spotted around mountains with like hot springs, so maybe the water is a reference to like that, and it's like sort of like native environment sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then he says, you know, it's not fire. Now he's like, you know, he's perceiving it as a different concept, understanding that. I mean, that last page, he looks like the kid from The Ring.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
He's all fucked up. He's just like, you know, black water, you know, black tears, that kind of thing. Very horror movie. And he's talking about like despair being manifest. So I'm thinking that we touched on this like the previous episode of it, saying like, what if it's a psychological attack? What if it's not real? Like Dopo's clones, flames were not real. It's like a psychosomatic thing. What if this masked form is the psychological attack?
Oh.
It's not the attack. It's not physical. It is despair. It is, you know, extinguishing of hope and light. The like, you know, the burning hope within the person, right?
Yeah,
talking about, like, the physical and the metaphysical are one thing for Ayashimon. So
right.
It's like, okay.
I'm thinking about it too now. Like, okay, so originally, you know, Akari Dopo is introduced with a technique that like steals heat or whatever, but it shoots it out in a physical way that resembles fire. But what it really is just like the absence of heat, or whatever the way that they kind of explained it as. But what if putting on the mask kind of like ups it to where we have the line of dialogue, you see now, kid, I am that which extinguishes light in the darkness. So maybe his like base element that we assumed was just coldness or ice or the absence of heat or whatever, what if it's just like literally just the extinguishing or the stealing aspect by itself? You know what I mean? Like his element is absence, is the extinguishing or taking away of things in general. And at base, it's in the form of stealing heat. With the mask on, it's in the form of stealing like everything. You know what I mean?
Hope,
like
positivity.
Hope, positive, light in the darkness. You know what I mean? Like when you look at it on the base level, it's like, oh, you're stealing heat. Okay, whatever. I'll just put more clothes on. Like you can picture yourself kind of dealing with that. in a couple of different ways. But you take light away, and now it's like, okay, well, we can't do anything in the darkness.
Well,
That's
I'm in
like,
the dark
that's the
now.
scariest thing ever. Yeah, you are despair manifest. If you could take away and extinguish all of the things that ground us to a comfortable, situation, and you just keep taking things away until we're left with nothing but darkness and anxiety, like that sounds like despair to me. So if his like core trait as an Ayashimon is just to steal things or extinguish things, and then it makes sense that at a base level it steals one thing, at a higher level it steals everything.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a cold room, right? So if you have a candle and it generates heat,
Hmm.
molecularly that heat is immediately leached and dissipated by the colder surrounding areas.
Right.
And so it's just this yawning, empty coldness that absorbs all heat, leaches all heat away from it. And I feel like that's what Dopo's ability is based off of in general, except for it's just like sped up.
Sure.
It's forcing the issue when he uses his abilities.
Yes.
Um,
So I wonder like what effect this black splash of dark water had on Maruo. Like what kind, like in what way was he damaged? Because he looks like spent. He's like, holy shit, I'm cooked. And then he like falls over and like seems to lose consciousness or die or whatever.
yeah.
Probably not die, obviously, but
Even
like,
Urara,
yeah,
like
Urara's like, holy fuck. Yeah,
that
like
hurt.
that was crazy. Yeah. So it's like, I
You were
wonder.
telepathically bonded. That hurt.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I wonder just what kind of damage he did to Maruo. And I also wonder like what Maruo can do to deal with this. Like I know he's not out. I know that's not enough to defeat Maruo outright, but like I have no idea like what answer he could possibly have for it, at least based on the history of the story so far. Obviously,
yeah.
Yujikaku can just hit us with new information in the next chapter about some area of his training that we didn't get on screen, similar to page fucking 7 when Buddy was like punch the flame, deny the concept of it to destroy it. It's like I don't remember that panel. I don't remember that line of dialogue inside of the training chapters that we got a couple weeks ago. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's new. That's a new line of
Take on
dialogue.
it.
That's like a new it's showing a scene that was off camera during his training. So like we could just get more of those. You know what I mean? Like that's normal. Like we see that all the time in shonen manga whenever someone is coming out of a training situation, the mangaka didn't show the entire training
Hmm.
from start to finish. So you get it in flashbacks in new conflicts. You know what I mean? Whenever the main character has to go up against a new enemy that seems to, have it where the main character doesn't, boom, you get a flashback to the part of his training that showed him how to deal with that obstacle. And then boom, they come out. We see that in One Piece all the time, et cetera, et cetera. So like that's not a new situation. So we could get that in the next chapter where we're just getting more of those off-screen conversations with his teacher that show how to deal with this situation. But other than
Yeah.
that, it's like I have no way to guess what happened to Maruo or how he can deal with it. And I'm also curious as to like what this means for the story, because it's like we already have an Akari Dopo that exists, and we can assume that Corey Hotel's dude sacrificed his, sense of self for the sake of this fight. And at the end of this, is he just going to be another Akari Dopo? Now we have two Akari Dopos to deal with. That's going to get awkward inside of the storytelling. So now that makes me think that the real Akari Dopo is going to pull up and intervene in some kind of way or snuff out the clone, because it's like if he can't go back to Tamigawa because he sacrificed himself for the sake of this fight, then I
Yeah.
feel like the real Akari Dopo has to come in and just murder him.
This is a one dopo kind of town.
Yeah, if
So,
Maruo can't just do it himself next chapter for one reason or another, but
let's see. I think there's a couple options.
yeah,
So if he does like the snuffing of things and like kind of drains Maruo mentally and physically by, his big blast of
yeah,
despair, Urara does have a telepathic connection that does connect to like the mind, the spirit of Mururo.
mm-hmm,
So what if she, does kind of a little bit of like that shonen trait of like cheering on to help, revive them and help them go past their limits, but it's more like when a lighter is out and it like you can't quite you spark it, you spark it, you spark it and it doesn't really go, but you
yeah,
take another lighter and you light it and then
yes,
spark it, it has now a little bit of light and help rekindle that. I
yes.
imagine that they might use like their telepathic like communication to do something similar to like help kickstart his brain and then the rest of his body will follow.
Sure. I like that
That's
too.
one option.
That's a really cool analogy with the lighters and shit. Because I've definitely been there. It's like, oop, the lighter's not going, but hold down the fucking, lighter fluid, engager button on the lighter so that it's shooting out the shit, and then use another fucking lighter to get the flame going. I've definitely done that. So that painted the visual perfectly for the
Exactly.
analogy.
I've left a lot of lighters out in the rain.
Right.
So I've done that a couple times. Um, so I think there could be something like that, and they still have those priests that are doing like the sealing thing.
That's right.
So like,
They are still on a time limit here.
so if Dopo, like this new like the doppelganger, goes
Doppelganger.
so if the doppelganger goes berserk and like Akari Dopo doesn't give a fuck about Kori Hotels. So if Kori Hotels becomes a target, then Gyobo Danuki would have to step in because he's missing the manager to do that thing for him. Would he seal the doppelganger and then request, these guys, the priests, to seal instead of kill the consumed Tamagawa?
Oh
And
wow.
Gyobo Danuki is like super tough. So
Yeah.
like if he's inside his nutsack, then maybe he can't like burn despair his way through.
Yeah. Hmm.
Because this like we've learned that Tamagawa was willing to do this for the dream of like protecting the place that these people can stay, and Gyobo Danuki worked really hard to find a place in the human world where Kitsune and Tanuki could live,
Right.
and no matter who threatens it, that's their target. And so even though it's one of their own, they will, step in, do what needs to be done.
Right.
I think they'll be like sad about it, and so they won't like kill him, but sealing him seems very in keeping what they do. And it's already, it's an option. It's a
Yeah.
thing that's actively going. They'll just double their fee or something. I don't
Right.
know.
And I guess I'm like wondering, like, okay, so like in the situation that we were talking about a moment ago about Akari, the real Akari Dopo actually pulling up to this situation to do something to Tamagawa, I'm sitting here going, like, why would he pull up? Because like, what would be the reason that he would have to come to the hotel right now and stumble upon this
Hmm.
situation? You know what I mean? Like that would be like really weird and convenient if there wasn't, a proper cohesive explanation as to why Akari Dopo is here at
Hmm.
this perfect moment to deal with this. So maybe Akari Dopo doesn't actually pull up because I can't see a reason that would put him here right now in this moment, but I don't know.
I think with the real Akari, he's got bigger fish to fry.
Right.
He's in charge
Yeah.
of the Enma Syndicate. Like
He's doing all
he's
types of shit.
he's doing Gilbo Danuki kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's got people for that.
Oh man,
Plus,
maybe like Maruo will start beating his ass next chapter and maybe someone will just like call Akari Dopo and be like, "Yo, our manager's about to lose. Like Tamagawa's about to lose. Like I don't want to see that. Like Maruo's beating him. Like there's only one other person that could probably actually get the job done, so we might as well just call Dopo and just
mm,
like fuck all of our previous motivations. We don't want to lose Tamagawa. Like maybe someone inside of his crew of subordinates
cadre.
really cares about Tamagawa on a personal level, and we're gonna find that out. And so like for the sake of protecting Tamagawa, they call Akari Dopo and say, "Hey, that kid that you whooped, that you let get away, is here right now, fucking up the Kori hotels. We will swear fealty to you, and work
Ooh.
with the Enma Syndicate if you come here and stop Maruo from beating." Tamagawa, you know what I mean, so that we can get
Well,
our Tamagawa back. Like that, I could see that being a sacrifice one of the secretaries make,
I
or
don't
one of the
know if he
secretaries make.
can go back.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it might be past the point of no return. But I'm
yeah,
saying
he
like
might.
someone will be like, "Yo, he's not listening when we tell him to chill out. We
Uh,
don't want to lose Tamagawa. So before that point of no return, hopefully I can get someone in here to stop the situation before we lose Tamagawa, and maybe it just happens anyway or something. But I could see someone making the attempt, like Yuji Kaku letting us know next chapter that one of his secretaries is like madly in love with him or something like that, and doesn't want to
mm.
see him go out like this. So they called for backup behind his back or something.
I think that like Dopo, he'd be like, first of all, you did the taboo for Tanuki. You know what you're signing up for. And
Yeah,
also, I want people to fear me. That means some guy is doing my shit that for me because he's me. Love that.
Yeah.
Like you'd be like, nah, go nuts.
Yeah.
Deal with him yourself. Remember, I'm in charge. If you can't deal with him, you definitely can't take me.
Right. Yeah, I could
Like,
see that too. But I could also see him being like, wait a minute, hold on, somebody is pretending to be me? All right, yeah, I'll be right there to come help you or whatever. And it's like,
burns the
nah, there's
hotel to
only
the
room for
ground.
one Akari Dopo in this town, and it just crushes him anyway. Yo.
Oh man, I could see that.
Either way, that'd be
Um,
nuts.
it is. There's. It's a really cool concept. I like this fight a lot.
Yeah.
I like the implications this fight causes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's only a few things that I have to say left.
Yeah.
Like some like one the language where he's like, um, I'll make you shake and tear at the name of Dopo Akari, my name. And, or like, if you think you're over your fear of me, I'll have to rekindle it once again. Um, he doesn't talk like Dopo Akari, right? He's still talking in a way that's similar to Tamagawa.
Right,
And
he's
like
talking like Tamagawa as Dopo Akari,
Yeah.
what he thinks Dopo Akari would say, probably.
Mhm.
But still just doesn't know the guy all that well.
I mean, he's never really cared to.
Yeah.
Because at the first page, he's saying like, Enma Syndicate is merely a business partner. I accept orders from no one but Mr. Gobi Yobu Danuki. So like, he's just doing business. He's never really cared, and like for the longest time, Dopo was the runt,
Yeah.
But I think that it's interesting that he uses like, name of Dopo Akari, my name, and it's just like it's him.
What page is that?
The last page.
Oh, yeah.
Where he says that, and he's like, my name, and it's like a reinforcement of. Just a reinforcement of like, hey, that's my name, right?
Yeah.
That's my name, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I am surrendering myself to this new replacement consciousness, replacement self that is taking over me. It's like, my name is Dopo Akari because I have given up my option of only holding this form for a little bit and going back to Tamagawa. Now I'm just gonna beat the shit out of you, become Dopo Akari, and get this shit done. So now, yeah, Dopo Akari is my name because I am fully
it's like
allowing
he's
myself to
reinforced it.
go past the point of no return. Yeah.
I like that. There's little things that you can like that like language and stuff can convey, and I
Yeah.
like that.
Absolutely.
Other than that, I have nothing else.
Yeah, I think I'm good too, man. Great chapter. Can't wait for the next one, as usual. I really like where Ayashimon is right now and where it seems to be going. And yeah, that'll do it for Ayashimon, chapter 23. All right, moving into Sakamoto Days, chapter 70, Sounds versus Gaku. Love this chapter. Very exciting. The way that the strategy develops inside of the choreography is really fucking cool. But it goes back to what we were saying in the Ayashimon segment about how just because you have a good idea for a new advantage doesn't mean that that's going to be effective enough to get you the W. You know what I mean? And I feel like we're seeing a lot more shonen series kind of, use this storytelling device or this technique where they generate hype by a new realization inside of the protagonist in combat that makes you go, fuck yeah, now they got it. And then you just reveal more about the antagonists that allows them to deal with that new strategy, in a way that brings despair and dread back to the comic. You know what I mean? So you got to be able to balance hope with dread. You know what I mean? Otherwise, it's going to feel like, I don't know, like there's no reason to worry about the protagonist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Inside of a conflict, you have to have that back and forth of, they're going to be okay. Oh my God, maybe not. Oh, wait, new strategy. This looks like it's going to be the one. Oh no, they dealt with that so easily. What's next? You know what I mean? You have to have that constant guessing, that uncertainty. That's what builds the tension, and that's what builds the stakes in a series like Sakamoto Days that's heavily reliant on choreography. So it's good to see our guy, Yuto Suzuki, employing these strategies inside of his storytelling.
There was parts that I quite liked with like the tension release cycle And the choreography is really solid that I quite liked. And it really showcases like Gaku's personality and the fact that like he is literally playing with his food.
Yeah,
He doesn't care. He knows he's stronger, you know.
yeah,
And he's playing around. He's having fun. He is treating this like a video game. He even says at one point, hey, sorry, I'm gonna break Shania.
yeah. And it's easy for
Page
him to do these things because he's
14.
clearly not there himself. And if he was, who knows how this fight would go. But he's not. He's literally is playing a video game for all intents and purposes. So it
He
makes sense
said
that
it
he would.
last time.
Yeah,
It's
it makes.
like Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
there's something interesting. So I like the use of tools in this aspect. So Kaji on page 3, he whips out like this like thing that he puts over both his ears, and it probably enhances his hearing
Yeah.
or like funnels background noise or like picks up on like smaller noises without while like fading out like environmental stuff.
Yeah.
Some sort of like auditory enhancer for him,
Yeah.
um, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
There is
And it's cool how they use it to like take the concept of technique stealing, you know what I mean, and like using it in this form of like I can hear things so well that I can hear the exact movements that this person is making. I can hear the way that they move against the ground, the way that they move through the wind, the way that their body, moves through space. I can hear all of those things so well that I can recreate it in my own body. And like that's really cool, you know what I mean? Because it's talking about how it's giving you so much more information than we usually get that you can use it to outright mimic the things that you are hearing, and that's like really cool as a concept.
I think so too, because like when you do like kicks and stuff or like punches, so like my buddy was into boxing for a while, and I was like, holding the mitts for a while, and he
Hmm.
was like, you want to trade off? You want to try this? You want to learn a little bit?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, man." And he was talking about, it. I was like, "Yeah, no." He's like, "There you go," and he kept saying, "That's a good sound. Like that sounds better, right?" Because
Mm.
because when you make contact with like those materials, they make like a thwack 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 sound.
Hmm.
Um, and based on like the amount of drag or if like you're hitting it at a bad angle, it does dampen or mute the sound of what you're trying to do. And it comes like if you hit it dead on, it makes like a nice, sharp, crisp, like thwack sound for boxing gloves. I'm thinking of like martial arts movies. If you watch like a Bruce Lee movie, the way he moves, his own clothes kind of whip, whip, as they like are nearly flinging off his body, and then it catches against his arms. Like his sleeve will like fly forward because he raised his arm, and then it'll hit the bottom of his like arm, and it'll
Mm.
make that thwip 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 because he's moving so fast. His clothes are almost like whipping around like that,
Mm.
and because he like would move so fast that they had to have him slow down so he could be caught on camera.
Right, because the cameras weren't tight enough back then.
Exactly. And so like Kaji being able to like listen to Gaku's clothes and the way he's like the way his clothes are bouncing off his body to recreate the sound of his attacks
Right.
is really interesting.
Yeah.
Uh,
I just love the idea. It's just like so like it's like it's Giorgio, you know what I mean, in like Ancient Aliens, where he's like aliens. It's like whenever I see a situation like this with a concept like this introduced in combat, I always just go Japan, you know what I mean? Because like they're the only people that can think of shit like this, you know what I mean? Like you only get this kind of shit in like manga choreography and action and fighting and concepts like these with power systems and just overall fighting techniques and fighting styles in general. This is very Eastern storytelling.
I think so because it's less about the focus. Like the West tends to have a focus on like strength and speed and endurance, right? Like
Right.
very core physical concepts. Whereas like a lot of manga, it revolves around like the senses,
Right.
how one observes the world and then can react to it. So Kaji is hearing. He's
Yeah.
able to do that. If you've ever read like the webtoon, I know a couple of our people in a Discord read The Boxer. They have like such visual acuity that the world to them seems as if it's in slow motion, and he dominates the boxing world because of it. He
Yeah.
like gets to the finals like only taking like 3 hits.
Yeah.
I mean, from like he gets hit more in other places, but like
Yeah.
everyone that isn't a champion of their like weight division,
Yeah.
no one even touches him.
Yeah, it just feels like historically, like in the West, you'll get like a superpower set, or something like that. That is, I don't want to say like surface level, but like they have a good idea for a concept, and then they just kind of like give you that at face value, and it looks good in the art, and like the writing is good enough for like everything. But then you go over to the East, and it just feels like Japanese people take those exact same concepts and just think about them on a much deeper level. Like, what are all of the angles that you can look at this concept? And then they think about that deeper than the West does, and then they take that deeper level of thinking and they turn it into writing as far as exposition, and it creates the nuances of power systems that we love so much in the East versus superhero comic books in the West, at least, you know what I mean? So I don't want to speak for all Western comic books, but specifically like inside of like big two superhero comics, they don't go as deep into these concepts as Japanese people do. Japanese people will look at something, think of all of the different ways that it can work, and then take that, spattered thought web and turn it into exposition to create the nuances in their power system.
Yeah.
And that's just like really cool and impressive and like a defining thing when you're thinking about Eastern versus Western superpowered comics. So
I think it's also like how they view like communities, right? Like they think about like how does this affect the people around me? How does this change how I interact with the people around me? And like that's a huge core like that's a huge thematic change in like storytelling, right? Like Western comics and Western politics tends to be about the individual. How does one fight against other individuals or its environment, like man versus environment, man versus God, man versus man, that
right.
kind of. Whereas like it's less competitive. It's like how does man interact with this? How does man with A interact with that? How does man with A have to interact with the world because of like this over like how does Kaji have to interact with the world based on his insane hearing? What would his childhood been like? He's shy, he's nervous, he's got all this anxiety. What are the weaknesses that would come from that if this guy ever weaponized it? And Gaku does like he does basically like a sonic boom clap. Bursts his eardrums.
That was wild, bro. Oh, wait. Real quick, before that even, we have to talk about how we totally like kind of predicted the like combat or like the in combat thought process of Shin and Kaji in regard to figuring out that Gaku is in a warehouse. He's in a confined space. You know what I mean? Because Kaji sits here and goes, "Hey, can't you hear that echo? I can hear
Beautiful.
through my enhanced hearing now that the signals for the person controlling Shania are bouncing off of walls in a way that is like reverberating back to my ears, even where he is in his little like warehouse situation. So he can hear the space that Gaku is occupying.
Mans is a bat.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's cool that he can hear it through the VR situation, you know what I mean? It's almost like he can tell, like he can hear the sounds that are happening in the warehouse even. You know what I mean? Which is like insane. Yeah.
I really love that panel at the bottom of 10 where he's facing Shania inside the warehouse as if Shania is not in the cave.
Right.
You know, he's like, I'm focusing on that. I'm not focusing on the cave. I'm focusing on the other end through that like electronic feedback that you're getting.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's crazy that he can like process spatially all that information.
Yeah. Yeah, that shit's wild.
There's
But it's still not enough, like we were saying. Like, it's like, hey, now we know you're in a fucking warehouse, so that means that we can corner you as far as the space that the person controlling Shania is occupying. We can move him against a wall to prevent his range of movement so that we can nail down Shania inside of this cave that's obviously a lot bigger of a space, but he can't move because now the real Gaku is running into a wall, so therefore Shania is running into a wall, and that creates that hope, that hype, that, oh shit, they got him dead to rights. But then he said, nope, boom, just punches through the wall. I think we talked about this exact situation too. Like, what if they do catch him, you know, against a wall or in the corner of the warehouse that he's in? Shania won't be able to fucking move, right? He'll be fucked, but he'll probably just punch through the wall and say, fuck this warehouse, and create more space for himself. And that's exactly what he did. Yeah, that's exactly what he did.
And they expected him to do that too, based off what he was doing, like how he's just brute force overwhelming everything that came in his way. He's like, well, a wall's not going to stop him more than it takes for him to knock that wall down. I like that Gaku, he's like, oh yeah, you guys got me. You guys got me pretty good. And then he, he's playing Super Smash Bros. And he's sitting up straight now.
Yeah.
He's like,
he was back before, and now he's like, all right, look.
Yeah, you got me down to 1 stock. Now to play for real. Time to go on a murder spree.
Yeah.
He's doing that, and I love that. There's one art part that I really liked. It was on page 8, top page. Gaku is saying, "This is starting to get good. Let's not waste it."
Mm-hmm.
The warehouse is reflected in the visor, and where the main door of the warehouse is shining, that's where his eye would be underneath the visor. And I just like that like overlay, kind of like little touch that adds kind of like that human aspect, because that shining eye thing in his like visor is repeated in Shania on page 17, where he says, "We can't beat him," and it's the opposite eye in this time.
Yes.
Same kind of visual stuff
that we got last chapter that you were talking about in the last review. Yo.
And it's like, cool, that was great. That was only like, it was almost about 9 to 10 pages difference.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, yes.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then the scene before that where he like copies, Gaku's attack. He's like, that movement, he's like, that's my move. And he's like, I've got your sounds down now, dude. And so he's talking about like, just from sounds alone, he can recreate another guy's attacks. I'd almost forgotten, like Torimaru, he's from the special recommendation group. And he's like, it took a bit of time. Then he's like, wait, why didn't you do that from the beginning? It takes concentration, that whole thing. But then it goes back to Gaku and what's the antler dude's name again? I can't fucking remember. I always forget.
Oh, God.
Kashima. It says it right there on the panel. So Kashima is like, sounds, how stupid. We can just play music or something. He instantly has, the counter to Kaji as soon as he gets the information from Gaku. So like that shows the competence of the villain organization that they're up against right now. But then Gaku goes and says, hey, even though we could instantly nerf this dude and I could just win easily just by like taking away his sense of hearing my movements translated to Shania, we can completely counter that. But like, let's not, because it's an honor-bound assassination. Whenever you have strong characters, they always want to get things done relatively honorably, if not as honorably as possible. You know what I mean? So naturally, a character like Gaku wouldn't want Kashima to nerf Kaji in that way because he's having fun. These guys are giving him a run for his money to a certain degree. So he's like, I want to see just how capable these guys are. So let's not take any advantages away from them, because one, I'm confident enough in myself, and even if I wasn't, I don't want to cheat in in a fight like this. And that's really cool because like it works on a character level, even though it is technically the villains or the antagonists ignoring a possible advantage that they could have for the sake of the protagonist to succeed, but they still don't, because he's just that capable. And I like how Sakamoto has to come in at the end after all of the advantages are exhausted, after the back and forth of dread and hope, back and forth giving us hype and making us worried, upping the uncertainty and the tension and the stakes from the fight has been executed beautifully. And now Sakamoto comes in to save Shin at the end. I can see people being relatively disappointed in this, if not outright disappointed, because we spent so much time hyping up the growth of Shin and wanting him to get this W. But this is Gaku technically that he's up against. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're in a part of the storytelling where Shin is going through a growth. You know what I mean? He's acknowledging his weaknesses, telling himself, no, you can't have Sakamoto come save you. You have to get things done on your own. He's going through that character journey physically and mentally right now. You know what I mean? So it's okay that he doesn't get the first massive W coming out of these new convictions. You don't want him to beat Gaku right here because they have to deal with this motherfucker for real a lot later. Or however long later into the future. So let him get his ass whooped this time while having great strides in his growth that we can see and respect. But then let Sakamoto come in and finish the job so that Shin can have that much more to think about going into the real confrontation with Gaku later on in the story, which I'm assuming we're going to get.
You know, it's a very, but like Shin did win, you know?
Yeah.
He beat Shania. He was Gaku's puppet. He was an extension of Gaku. He was a set amount of skill,
Mm-hmm.
you know, had physical limits. And the only reason the Shania puppet won is because Gaku overclocked him.
That's right.
So like he beat Gaku's extension.
Right.
So
now
he
Gaku
won.
said, yo, you can't just beat my extension. You got to fight the real me now. I'm going to break Shania so that I can have my full range of movement and capability. Fuck the puppet. I have to get real. I have to like actually fight you for real. And that is a W for Shin. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, and like Shania, like his arms are falling apart on page 16 at the beginning. Like blood is pouring out of his nose and mouth, and he's like, this guy is not doing well.
Right.
He is going to die or something, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, he beat Shania, but he's not beating Gaku. So I'm okay with Sakamoto going in. Like Shin has shown a big burst of growth, and at the same time, like growth is not continuous. Sometimes you stay the level you're at for a couple of years and then you grow again. Some people grow in 10-year spurts. You know, yeah, it's like going to the gym. You know, it's, you know, you don't do it right away, and neither is Shin, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm super okay with it. I just don't want the power, like, I don't want to say the word power scaling. I don't want the power scaling to start feeling weird in Sakamoto Days.
But it does feel artificial that way when you like, he beat this person, but he lost to this person, therefore he's worse. And I'm like, that's not quite how those things work. Because like, if you go to like, I love boxing, right? You can have a lot of different kind of boxers in a weight class.
Yeah.
Some of them are like, I'm really good at this particular guy. For some reason, I just vibe with him. I know what he's doing, and my style fucks him up. Even though I'm not the strongest or fastest of my weight bracket or my particular fighting style. I'm just good against this dude.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, power scaling always feels like an awkward conversation because it's like a lot of the characters aren't static.
Yeah. It just feels better when you have characters that don't like automatically win just because they had a growth spurt. You know what I mean? And it's not like automatically, like this was still very high diff, and the tension, you know, switched, and the advantages switched back and forth constantly throughout the fight. But I mean, like, he is literally in the middle of like a growth spurt in his character arc. You know what I mean? So like, you don't want to just give him that W because Gaku is just too big of a player on the enemy team. You know what I mean? And it just doesn't make sense for Shin, even though this dude is being, you know, controlled by Gaku and not actually fighting Gaku. That just does more for the feeling of growth. You know what I mean? Like when you have the character lose even after all of this mental and physical growth, it just makes it feel that much better. You know what I mean? It's always better than having them win. You know what I mean? In my opinion.
It's more satisfying. It feels more natural. Right. It doesn't feel as forced. And it's like, if it feels really forced, the series becomes a lot less fun for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be able. I don't want to come to it. Oh, my bad. Sorry. Say that again.
Oh, it's just like it feels forced if like the wins are like automatic. Like, I leveled up, I'm gonna win.
Yeah.
And so like that was one of the things that like, I like Black Clover. I like the concept of Black Clover, but some of the fights just felt a little hollow to me because of that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool, you leveled up. I don't know how your new powers work, but like they're immediately working, and it feels a little forced.
Yeah.
Whereas like Ayashimon and like Sakamoto Days, it feels like, yeah, this is a struggle the entire way up.
Yeah. And I don't want to feel like, you know, I can come to expect that whenever a character, you know, it goes through an obvious growth spurt, that they're just going to get a W immediately following that. I don't want to feel like I have that expectation in a series. You know what I mean? I want to feel like I want to feel like I don't know what's going to happen next. I want that uncertainty. You know what I mean? So if you have so many conflict resolutions that come after a growth spurt, then you're going to come to expect like, oh, all right, there's newfound vigor in the main character. There's a newfound, like he pulled. It's just always better to consider the ramifications of systems that are already in place than to just introduce a new system and then
Yeah.
have that be conflict resolution. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go back into what we already have and see if there's a way I can pull a W out from something in history rather than have the W come from some kind of hand wavy injection of new information and then come to expect that that's the way that conflicts are going to be resolved in a story. You know what I mean? I need that uncertainty factor until the very end. Otherwise it just is that much less compelling if it doesn't happen that way for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've got two things. That's all I've got left. Um, the page 14, when Gaku says, I'm gonna break Shania, I don't think the wound on Kaji should be fatal because of how bulky his jacket is.
Right.
It's still like, he's gonna have some fractured ass ribs, if not
Yeah.
just missing flesh, but
Yeah.
it's not gonna be like, oh, he scooped his liver out.
Right. Right.
Like, uh, real hurt, probably going into shock as we speak, but like, I think he'll be able to be salvageable and survive. I like
Him
Kaji. I
blowing
think he's
his
a
ears out though is like a big deal. It's like that's fucking,
brutal.
that's Kaji's bread and butter, and he seems to have just like popped his eardrums. So it's like,
Yeah,
holy
that
shit, what
kid's
is that?
on
Yeah, what does that
sick
mean
leave
for
for a while.
what'd you say?
That kid's on sick leave for a while.
Yeah, but I
He's
mean like sick leave like for a while. Like I feel like how do you, unless there's some kind of like crazy surgery that he can get or some kind of like whatever, it's like
yeah.
I don't know. I want to feel like his fucking hearing is going to be drastically affected by this. Like it's never going to be the same again, and that's like his whole fighting style. So like what does this mean for the future of Kaji's character to have his eardrums popped like this? Like that's big damage. Like the top of page 16,
Yeah.
that blood is shooting out with some decent PSI, it looks like.
Velocity.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? Like that's major.
That
But
blood is leaving his eardrums expeditiously.
yeah, for
Uh,
real.
uh, yeah. I mean, if it heals and it's like scarred over, his hearing is reduced, he might not have that same level of weakness, right? He still has like the
Mm,
same audible acuity, right? Like he's still good. He can still understand the sounds that he's receiving, but maybe his like audible like perceivable range is diminished, so like that might short like breaking a bone, right?
yeah.
Like it might reinforce his power so that like he's not as sensitive to sound as possible, but if he's within a certain range and he can still hear you, he can still interpret and do the same kind of copy stuff. It's just like that same kind of like sonic clap
Right.
won't KO him like last time because he literally cannot hear that level of nuance
Mm,
at that
sure.
like that preciseness
Right,
or like
right,
range. Like he's like, oh yeah, I can't hear through a Shania bot anymore. I can't hear through a phone how
right.
another guy is moving, you know. And so like he might just adapt with it,
Yeah, he
or
could.
like I could see that happening. The acupuncturist lady seems to do really crazy stuff. Like,
Mm.
Sakamoto's physicality literally shapeshifts from like obese to, svelte, you know, lean beef.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like there's stuff like that.
And I wonder like exactly how drastic this clap was from Gaku, because we see that he's got some pretty intense motion lines going on in the warehouse in the Gaku body, and then transferring straight to Shania in the cave. When the clap actually comes together, you see that it's actually affecting the water underneath them, and it looks like it's pretty major. Obviously it's enough to blow out the ears of Kaji, who has like way more acute sense of hearing than Shin, but it doesn't look like it affected Shin like at all. And then
Yeah.
Shin's damage comes from him reaching his limit or whatever, we can assume, because he says not now right under that. But Shin doesn't look like he was all that affected by the actual clap itself. And it's like, I get it, it hurts Kaji more because he can hear so much better, but to not affect
And
Shin at all makes me think that the clap wasn't really all that major to
I
begin
think it's
with.
because, and the thing is, it might not be all blood, because remember, he, in the beginning of the chapter, had machines. So if you zoom in, some of it's the machine breaking as well. like his auditory enhancing machines that he clips
Oh,
on at the
sure.
beginning of the chapter is breaking. So like it's not all just blood.
Yeah, so if it's
Uh,
strong enough to physically break the fucking like I don't even know what those things are made of, but it's got to be some at least some kind of hard plastic, if not some kind of metal. You know what I
Delicate
mean?
stuff.
Like or whatever kind of material it is for a clap, however far away from Kaji to reach him and actually like blow up his technology, like that has to have affected Shin. He's right next to him.
Yeah, there's stuff.
Yeah.
The only thing I have left is that I liked Kashima's like response on page 7 to like, oh, the sound, that's stupid. And he's more of like a clinical, I play to win. Gaku is more, it's the type A, type B personality that you
Hmm.
see in Japanese horoscopes, where Gaku's like, I'm playful, I want to play with my food. And Kashima's just like, I'm practical.
Yeah.
Let's fucking win.
Yeah. How about
And
pragmatism? Question mark. Like,
pragmatist, yeah.
why are you over here? You know,
Why are you humoring these kids?
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater when we could literally just like get this done and get back to what we were fucking doing. How about?
Yeah. I it showed like them and then also like Gaku saying like, nah, I'd rather not listen to the music because your music sucks. It's all sad shit. And it's like best of the Heisei era, which is like 1899 to 1989 to 2019.
Hmm.
Uh, like sad pop bangers. I don't know.
Oh, is the Heisei era that long? Wow.
Yeah, the Heisei era is 20 years.
Wow.
Um, 30,
Okay.
30 years?
Yeah.
No. Yeah,
89 to 2019. That's
yeah.
like,
I
yeah,
googled it.
yeah. That's like
Um,
30 years. Yeah. Yeah. That's wild.
yeah, but they
Um.
do that, and
Yeah.
then yeah, it just shows like a little human side and like kind of like the differences in their personality, which is
Hell
like
yeah.
it's just like two panels, but I like the showcase.
Yeah. And like every time that Yuto Suzuki kind of gives us this scene in the warehouse of Kashima and Gaku interacting, you know, and how pally it is, you know what I mean? How friendly it is, how like cool it is. It's not just like, no, you fool, do this so that we can accomplish our overarching dastardly plot. Shut up, don't tell me what to do. We have the same exact motivations with two, completely.
Everything for the Overlord.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like it's like, yo, like our personalities, like, being
We're
this.
just doing a job. Come
Yeah,
on.
like, yeah, it's just like always better to show. I don't know. I prefer antagonists that can interact in
Mhm.
this way over the, blind zealot, like kind of subordinates that we're used to, but
It's
or
like
maybe not
watching.
used to, but have historically been there in abundance. Yeah.
They've got the vibe of like two dudes that get sent off to like do construction, and then they're just like, "Hey," Kashima's like, "Hey, we gotta wear hard hats," and Gaku's just like, "Bro, we just did lunch. Why are you like this?"
Yeah, like you
Like,
care about this
can't.
job so much,
It's
bro.
just like
Like,
I'm one handing these pallets, and he's like, "You Gaku, you can't do that. You need to wear like a weight belt or something." He's like, "What are you, OSHA or my mom? Get off my dick!" Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, though it's fun to see.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Last
I think
thought
that's
that
all
I
I got.
have. Yeah, last thought for me. I've been having this conversation actually with one of my friends for like a couple of weeks now, and I'm trying to remember the last time an exam arc in a manga actually completed without being drastically interrupted in some way. Like I feel like that's like a trope. Like you have an exam arc, it gets
Hmm.
interrupted and doesn't get to conclude conventionally. Like Ranger Reject Bylong exams is happening right now, and it's like the exact same situation.
Yeah.
Sakamoto Days exam arc interrupted by Shinaya Puppet, Gaku, and Kashima. Fucking tuning exams, fucking like you
Yeah.
name it. Like the only exam arc that I like remember completing conventionally was like the fucking Hunter exam in Hunter x Hunter, and even that like kind of like got weird, but still completed. But
Yeah. With
yeah,
Hisoka. They're like,
no,
hey man, calm
With Illumi and Killua, yeah, because Illumi like was disguised as Gita Rocker for the Hunter exam, and then in the final like tournament, for the exam, he
down.
like pulled out all of his pins and revealed that he was Illumi, and then was like, Killua, you got to kill somebody because like I don't want you to be a hunter, I don't want you to have friends, essentially. So
Yeah.
like that there it was interrupted for Killua, but it didn't interrupt like the entire
The
exam, and it
whole
actually
thing.
got to finish and everyone got their hunter licenses and whatnot. But
Oh
like
my
other than
god.
that,
I think
I
you're
don't
right.
yeah, I don't know. I can't at least I can't off the top like think of another exam arc that didn't get, interrupted in some major way before it concluded. But
Yeah,
if you if
I literally can't think of anything. If you guys
yeah,
can, put in
yeah,
the comments, please, because I
yeah.
want to read that. I want to see what a full exam looks like.
Yeah, it's like totally a thing, bro. Like it's like
Huh.
an established thing like that. Like it's almost like mangaka feel like they have to do it. But that's all I have for Sakamoto this week. You good? All right, that'll do it for Sakamoto 70. All right, getting into Mission Yozakura Family, mission number 129. Let's be a family again. Holy shit, this chapter was fucking insane, obviously, but
Creepy.
we got another color page, back-to-back color pages inside of Mission Yozakura Family. Can't remember the last time I saw back-to-back color pages for any series, so good on you,
You know what?
Hitsuji Gondaira. You're killing the
Yeah.
game right now. This one's fucking beautiful too. They always are, but there's like 3 or 4 different like styles I want to say that like kind of like stick out inside of the color page history of Mission Yozakura Family, that like obviously you get like a huge like spectrum of different kinds of art that you can see, but like there are a couple different styles that I just have vivid memory of off the top, and like this is that one of them, and the last one too, where it's like that almost color pencil pastel kind of vibe to the coloring. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like it. It's nice and soft. It kind of showcases like the whole family's color palettes,
Yeah.
especially when we're used to seeing them only in like the black and white medium,
Right.
which I quite like. And it's a nice contrast to like the previous color page, right?
Right.
Where Mitsumi was like, oh, kind of forlorn, right?
Mhm.
Whereas this one's like bright and optimistic, and it's just like, okay, here's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, it's
Which-
showing us what she was missing in the previous colored page, where she had her hand on the glass inside the house, looking outside, and we had that conversation about how she is, kind of longing for that inclusion in the outside, festivities that the rest of the siblings kind of get to have, while she's kind of like locked behind a wall in a fortress to protect her. She's like kind of like feels separated from what the rest of the gang does usually, but this is showing her outside with everybody. You know what I mean? Obviously, they're not on any kind of like dangerous mission or anything. This is actually a very wholesome slice of life family moment, but
Yeah.
still, it's like a direct contrast to the previous color page. As far as
man.
Mutsumi goes, you know what I mean, in her in
Life
her situation. Yeah.
And saying like on the other side of the coin, that goes directly to like page 13.
Yeah.
Oh man, like him saying love and hate are 2 sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this chapter was very revealing about Momo. It was nice to see his real thoughts
Yeah.
behind the normally composed exterior, right?
Right.
Like he's always been enigmatic, and this has been a very raw, visceral
Yeah.
exposure of his like drives.
Absolutely. He's always being shown as like this, composed, like you said, individual that always seems to be a step ahead and like understands like what's going on in a situation and knows how the situation is going to go. He doesn't ever look, worried about anything. But then that veil gets broken and we kind of like see him in his true state mentally, which just adds to the unhinged nature of these last couple of chapters, bro. And like Momo making the comparison between him and Ray and
Or Tayo? Oh,
right.
him and Ray.
Right, yeah.
there we go.
So him making the comparison between him and his wife and Tayo and Mutsumi serves multiple purposes, I think, because it's like over the last couple of chapters he's been shown, more and more unhinged. But the beginning of this chapter starts with this comparison, and it works as like pathos for Momo, obviously, and like it gives him like relatability points, but like not only for us, but also Tayo. Lines of dialogue like this, in this very, psychological exchange that they've been having the last couple of chapters works towards creating conflict in the hearts of us and the protagonists. You know what I mean? Because it's like, yeah, you're being crazy as fuck and we got to get you out of here. But like, you totally used to be cool and have lives like similar to ours, going out and doing regular activities with your wife the way that like I'm going out and doing regular activities with my wife and Goliath and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, you're insane and we have to defeat you. But like, part of us definitely wants that dad back. You know what I mean? And it creates that conflict, in the protagonist that makes the tension skyrocket because it's like, dude, we have to beat our dad's ass because he's so crazy, but like he used to be so cool and we miss that. But we have to, realize inside of ourselves that it's never going to be that way again. So like the emotional, intelligence of Hitsuji Gondaira to be able to write this kind of conflict this smoothly, as crazy as it is really interesting and impressive because it's like this is a story that like I personally did not expect to get this kind of situation from when I started
He's
it.
horrifying.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like this shit
Man.
is wild and deep and introspective and it like crazy as fuck.
I feel like a lot of his like dialogue is him projecting.
Yeah.
So much of it is projecting. Like when he sees like page 2, he sees Tayo, he sees Mitsumi. Page 3 he says, you remind me of him. But on page 2, he says a husband who protects the family head and his hands are
Yeah.
like talons visibly shaking and it's like he hates Tayo because he has what he lost.
Right.
And it's like it's like it feels like an obvious resentment. He immediately pivots to like crying tears of joy that's so beautiful. And it's like he's trying to skew his entire life in like the most positive outlook possible because that's the only way he's able to survive
Yes.
his own anguish. And so like being told to stop um he's being told to stop. He says like he's like you children are bound by the past, prisoners of your own hatred. Where's your positive attitudes? Where's your mercy, your forgiveness? You've forgotten all these things. And I feel like this is more a projection of Momo's internal self onto the children.
Yeah.
He is bound to the by the past. He is a prisoner of his own self-hatred, and he is he needs to find he needs to find the positive attitude. He needs to remember his mercy and forgiveness because he was about to punish his children, attack them, and
Right.
he immediately like bit his own fingers
Yeah.
to curb his own bloodlust
Yeah.
against it. Like it's not the kids that need mercy or forgiveness. It's him. He's forgotten all those things. He's been warped by his time and isolation within the cold, community that is the
Yeah.
Tsubomi attendants.
Yeah, wow, that was really cool. That was well said. I 100% agree. And it's also just like really cool that this particular conflict was resolved through a difference in philosophy, right? Like a mental exchange and defeat of Momo, to save the truly physical conflict for later. You definitely didn't want it to just be like another Naraku situation where it's like, haha, you know what I mean? Like the Kyoichiro stuff is done, and then I pull up and then we say
Bees.
some words, and then bees, and then I'm gone. You know what I mean? And I'll see you next time or whatever. Like, no, something was actually accomplished here through this conversation with the kids. Like, yes, there was a little bit of a physical exchange between Futaba and Momo and Kyoichiro, but it wasn't like a true, physical, like we're taking down Momo right now. You know what I mean? So like, you definitely wanted to give it substance, and this exchange and of the motivations and the mental state of Momo was a great way to deliver a very intense and tension filled conflict resolution to this situation, even though they didn't actually defeat him. But they kind of did. They defeated him like mentally first, and now he's like, oh,
I mean,
and he's fucking ripping his fucking face off through the frustration of like exactly what you were just talking about how he's a prisoner of his own self-hatred and whatnot. That was really well said. But yeah, like they totally beat him up in that way, and now he's like, all right, fuck it, I gotta go regroup, and I'll see y'all next time. So they got like a W on this man essentially, and
they beat him.
Yeah.
By having boundaries,
Exactly.
and sticking to them.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things. Like I was reading on how one of the best ways to spot a narcissist or an abuser is to have boundaries and literally just stand by them and not be cajoled into their way of thinking. No
Yeah,
matter how pretty their words sound or how good their reasoning appears, if
yeah,
you're just like, hey man, let me have my boundaries and leave it at that. And
yeah.
if they can accept that, that's good. That
And at
means
the
they
end of
have a
the
good handle on their problems.
Right, and at the end of the day, like they're going up against a parent, you know what I mean? And like it's hard to, stick to boundaries, like probably like when it comes to like a mom or a dad, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I've disagreed with my parents a bunch of times, even like since, becoming an adult, obviously. And it's, a lot of times you just kind of like let things go because it's your mom or your dad, you know what I mean? Like that you normally would just be like, you want to say like, yo, no, like you want to disagree or you want to, just outright deny a certain thing that they're saying or doing, but you're just like, it's mom or dad though, so like whatever, you know what I mean? And it's nothing ever that, this intense, obviously, because this is a work of fiction with superpowers, and this dude is actually a psychopathic like genocide or
Yeah,
murderer, you know what I mean? So we can't relate in that way, but like
yeah.
on a real life level, there's been plenty of times where like, you could obviously disagree with your parents and
Oh
just
yeah,
decide to go with it anyway just because it's mom Dukes, it's dad, like whatever, you can have that, it's my parents, so they have to fight against that feeling, while they're establishing these
absolutely.
these boundaries in this chapter. So
I actually had a conversation with my mom about how she was almost talked out of buying a home in a different town, like her second home in a different town, by the family. Like the family's just like, why are you moving away from like this town A? Why do you want to move to town B? Like she almost got talked out of it, and she's like, no, I'm not really happy in town A. I would like to try out town B and have my own space and like do this thing. Like I'm gonna stick to it. And like there was a disagreement, and she was like, it was a little bit much. They were a bit much about that. And it's just like, it makes sense. Like no matter how old you are, you know, it's some parents have a really hard time. Like even people my age, like some of my friends talk about how their parents don't will always see them as children, as
mm,
opposed to grown ass adults with like mortgages.
yeah, yeah,
And it's just like, hey, please trust my judgment in how I live my life because you raised me,
right,
and I have taken all the information you've given me, and I am living a life that an adult has.
yeah,
Like some of my friends are having kids or have had kids, and then their parents are like, you don't know what you're doing, and he's like, I'm doing exactly what you did, but with like a little more money to start off with. What are you
right,
talking about?
yeah,
Like, I know exactly what I'm doing.
right. But
You
yeah, he
know?
comes out of his little like crazy fucking psycho monologue, and everyone's like, "All right, it's time to fade this motherfucker." Like he said enough, you know what I mean? And they go to stance up
Mhm.
on him, um, but he's like trying to get away. He's like, "Nope, I'm losing it personally, and I can tell that I'm losing it. So I am not in the proper state to actually have this conflict with you guys right now. I'm gonna bounce." But like I'll see y'all next time, and they're like, "Fuck no, you're going nowhere. We're about to get you out of here right now." And then right before they pounce on him, Tayo falls over, and then we get the line of dialogue: the poison in Tsubomi's blossoms is deadly. He spent all of his strength to neutralize it, so it would be a miracle if he didn't collapse. That makes sense. We never really got any kind of explanation of what that um connection between him and Kyoichiro
Mhm.
could like possibly have an effect on his body. Like we never got that. It was just kind of my blossoms are neutralizing your blossoms, and that made sense to us in the moment. But then coming in now after Tile collapses and saying the reason why he collapsed is because of a detriment from neutralizing all of that poison. Well, that's the explanation that we didn't
Mhm.
get before in the chapter where he actually clashed with Kyoichiro, because it was going to be used in this chapter to explain why Momo got a moment of distraction to escape the team. So it
I
all
love it.
flows cohesively and feels good and feels organic, and it's not just like Tayo collapsed randomly at this moment that we were going to pounce on him, for whatever reason, just so that Momo could escape. Like no, it like actually makes sense everywhere, and it feels really good, and it feels like it's like domino effect, like one pushing over another.
It tracks.
Yeah.
Oh
Or
man.
some other kind of like random distraction that could have happened, to allow Momo to
Yeah.
escape. Like no, it feels planned and thought out and thorough, and I love that.
Yeah. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like a Deus Ex Machina. Like
Right?
everything has a logical reason for why
Yeah,
it's currently happening.
yeah.
There was this moment. Um, when Momo was tearing, right before Momo's tearing at his own face, if you look at his fingers at 7, it looks like he has multiple joints, like three
Yeah.
extra knuckle joints. And it's just
On
like,
page 7, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's horrifying. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like this. I don't like that. And
Yeah.
then after like the
Yeah.
fact that he like almost doesn't feel in control of his like bloodlust and body, like the way he's interacting with his own body and talking to himself
Yeah, at
is
first I thought that there was like
horrifying.
another, personality in there, you know what I mean? Because like
It's
he
scary
he
because
he
he
reaches
isn't.
the hand out and then you turn the page and he catches the hand, pulls it back, and then the hand like turns towards his face. So I thought it was gonna be a situation like, hey, why are you stopping me, motherfucker? Like let me throw an attack
Hmm.
at these guys. Like get out of here. Like what are you? But then no, like this is literally just him being crazy, putting his hand in his mouth so he can bite down on the fingers and stop himself. I don't think it's a dual personality thing anymore. But just like the hand, the two panels on the bottom of 11 where his hand is facing one way and then the hands are facing himself, the fact that Hitsuji Gondaira dedicated 2 panels to show that motion made me think that he's like conflicted with like another personality or something inside of his body, and this was like a hint towards that. But I feel like I don't really agree with that as much anymore after
I
finishing the
don't think it
chapter.
is.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
he's like,
He's
because
just that crazy.
he wants to inflict pain because he's hurt. Like he
Right.
wants to lash out at them. He says, you know, bad kids need to be like punished by their parent.
Yeah.
And like if you look closely on the bottom of 11, he literally like look at where his hand is. It starts here and then it starts here, which means he fully twisted his wrist while
Oh,
clamping down. He broke his own
yo,
arm
you're totally
to
right.
cause himself focus and then bit it on it repeatedly to
Yeah.
like get him to vent his frustration and like his desire to spread pain in response to pain.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then
And the imagery
he,
is nuts throughout all of
dude,
these
his eyes
unhinged
are
moments.
horrifying at 12.
Yeah, it's like, and 10 too, like because like when you have, a manga where a lot of the time, in this manga specifically, it's not in all manga, but a lot of the time in Mission Yozakura Family, the skin, colors are just represented by like stark whites. There isn't a whole lot of shading and detail that goes into, character drawings regularly in Mission Yozakura Family. There are moments that everyone gets where they're a little bit more shaded, a little bit more 3D looking, where they're supposed to look, suave or menacing or whatever in those moments. But when you get this imagery with Momo, where it's very close up, he's got blood all over his face, and it's highly detailed, hella shaded, more screen tones and whatnot. The more detail you give something, I feel like the scarier it is almost. You know what I mean? Especially when they're making faces like Momo is making. Because, like, you watch SpongeBob and everything is all like SpongeBob aesthetic, and then you'll get one random frame where it's like Victorian
Hyper-realistic.
painting levels of like detail and like, yeah, hyper realistic and whatnot. And it's like, shocking, and it kind of like disturbs you and kind of like scares you because it's just detailed to that degree and it's jarring in a page turn fashion. So like it's the imagery is just definitely doing everything to serve the unhinged crazy nature of Momo that Hitsuji Gondaira is trying to convey here. And I can't remember the last time I was creeped out by antagonist imagery to this degree. And it's like we got Elusive Samurai going right now where Yusei Matsui is doing crazy things inside of the imagery with Takauji, and we have, all kinds of villains throughout the magazine. But Momo is the one that like really kind of like chills me to the core in these last couple of chapters. Like I can identify the sinister and menacing nature of all the other antagonists in the magazine too, but Hitsuji Gondaira just knocks it out the park. He fucking bites his fucking hand on 12, and then on 13 he's looking at it afterwards, and there's like a sticky string of blood and saliva like from his mouth to his fucking fingers. It's like decision making like that like just ups the creepiness, that much more. And it's just like, man, what a performance.
And like the fact that on 12 like the speech bubbles are muffled because he's talking through chewing on his fingers.
Wait, where?
Like the speech bubbles are
On page
rougher.
12?
On page 12, the speech bubbles are
Oh,
rough. And then once you get to the top of 13, his speech bubbles are like smoother, like less jagged,
Okay.
and then the speech bubbles become a little more jagged when he starts doing this internal monologue where
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I
and I
totally
was
see what
just
you're talking
like,
about now. And then they're like perfectly smooth by like the last couple of things that he says. Yeah, like on 16, we'll meet again soon.
mm-hmm.
That yeah, like it's not as like crazy and jagged. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, no, it's like his dialogue is terrifying
yeah. Yeah,
because
it
it's
really
like
is.
it's fine, I'm fine, no need to be hasty.
All will be well.
I know they actually love me.
Yeah,
Why don't I step away for now? I've endured this so long already. I'm used, more than used to waiting.
yeah.
I'll know one day they'll forgive me and accept me. And it's just
Yo.
like Jesus Christ. And like and when that day comes, his arms spread out as if he's offering a gift. He's throwing it at them. And it's just like you're not reaching towards someone, you're acting as if you're proffering something. And what you're throwing out is like a billion red flags, bro. Like I
Yeah,
got nothing.
yeah.
Oh, he's so chilling. He's probably one of like my favorite ongoing villains at this moment. Like this moment is like, yes, I haven't been creeped out by an antagonist like this since Lieutenant Surumi.
Ooh, from
Um,
Golden Kamui.
from Golden Kamui in like the 200 chapter like 260 280 range. Um, I'm just gonna leave it at that because I don't want to spoil it for you.
Right, right,
For
right.
those who know, you know,
You know,
like
yeah,
you know, holy shit, like 274. Oh,
yeah.
um, something along those lines. Um,
What a chapter.
yeah, God, he's creepy. He scares the bejesus out of me.
Yeah.
Um,
I wonder where we go from here. You know what I mean? Like um, usually like after a big action conflict in because in Yozakura family it can go from like slice of life everyday mundane stuff inside of the family, that's relatively wholesome,
mhm.
to a mission or whatever, and then the action turns back up. And even in the more like high stakes action like frontline arc, or you know whatever the Kawashita conclusion arc was, like all that shit was crazy, but they still kind of like went back to a relatively wholesome slice of life atmosphere pretty quickly. And we
Yeah.
can assume that it'll go back into like more, mundane slice of life stuff after this, since this was such a big action conflict physically. But it's like, man, like what would that even look like after a situation like this? Like, will we get one chapter where it's like an aftermath kind of like down in the dumps, like slice of life reflection thing, and then go back into more wholesome stuff because like that's just like the positivity and the optimism of the protagonist that we're dealing with? Or are we going to get like a whole arc of like mental, you know um
Fortification.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like, is it going to be like a completely darker and sadder atmosphere inside of this next slice of life arc than we've ever gotten before? Or are we just going to stay inside of this atmosphere and maybe not just go right back into more action, but like not actually go back into what could be considered, Mission Yozakura slice of life, but just like non-action shonen plot progression? You know what I mean?
Mm.
I'm excited
I
to
mean,
see the answer to that.
going from like because like Yozakura tends to go into three modes. It is action, slice of life, and horror.
Hmm.
Like and right after the horror, I feel but like I think that like going straight into a slice of life would be almost jarring in from like the slice of life that we've known before,
Yeah, historically,
right?
like the wholesome, like fun,
The
funny
wholesome
kind.
stuff
Yeah,
would be super jarring, and I
yeah,
think what would happen is there's going to be like small bursts of action, and then kind of a wind down of like what's driving this action, which is either like despair or like sadness or anger at the whole situation. They're like, I have to be active, I don't want to think about it, or like I need to be active because I need to work out my feelings,
yeah,
right? Like because of like Momo reacted to like despair of being rejected by his family despite having being in isolation, having all these built up expectations, and having those kind of like shook for him.
hmm,
He wanted to create action of violence, turns that upon himself, still has that action. So I expect the Yozakura family to also have action
yeah,
driven by how upset they are by the fact that Momo acted the way he did.
Yeah, and they could use that as like fuel for like probably like a training arc for everybody. It's like, okay, we got to take this Momo motherfucker down. He kind of flexed on us a little bit the last couple of times that we've been dealing with him, but like now we know that this is like big bad main dude. We got to get him the fuck out of here. So let's all just like go into like super focused, zoned in training mode and just get ourselves up to the best possible versions of ourselves for this eventual, final Momo conflict. I could totally see them just like going into, pedal to the metal go mode and just like starting to train all across the house. Yeah.
And then I imagine them to be like still really stressed because, they're not allowing themselves to relax and then having a more wholesome slice of life moment where they have like a family gathering
Yeah.
and they just have like a family event. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, we've worked really hard, we're training, but have we really rested and recuperated?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how hard we train if we're not actually taking care of ourselves,
Right.
we're not going to be effective.
I could also see
Um,
it going something like that too, where they're like fresh out of this, they're like, okay, it's time to get serious. Let's get in tip top shape for this Momo motherfucker in the final conflict that's coming up here. And they spend so much time going on missions and doing other kinds of training. Maybe Tayo goes to like gold level inside of his assassination progress or whatever, and they
Ooh.
get all of that stuff done. And then before the final conflict, maybe Mutsumi comes forth and like suggests a situation where it's like, hey, we've been thinking about what Momo did and said to us, and it's been fucking with us, and it's given us drive and motivation to like get ourselves ready physically for our next confrontation with them. But before that, let's just chill and be a family for at least like
Yeah.
one day, one more time before this final conflict. And then I could see her suggesting something like that for for the sake of the family. You know what I mean? Like, hey, it's cool to get in shape or whatever, but before we go actually do this, let's be a family one more time before the final fight. You know what I mean? I could
Ooh.
totally see that.
Like there's I think that like maybe one of the lower action points is like there's like a burnout kind of like end point
Hmm.
to one of like the siblings and they're just like I'm so frustrated I can't why am I failing like I can't like Momo's gonna ruin everything if I don't succeed. I hate this. I can't stand this. And it's like, hey, we're family. Like,
Right.
I know you're upset and I know you're driven, but you're gonna do all right, and it's okay to rest. Like, you're with family. You're with us right now. Just relax,
Right.
and that'll be enough. And I think, yeah, that's super impactful.
Yeah, I love that.
Uh,
I can't wait to see what it is. Regardless, I know Hitsuji Gondaira will write the shit out of it. But yeah, I think that's all I had for Yozakura this week.
Same.
All right, moving into Jujutsu Kaisen, chapter 184, Tokyo number 2 colony, part 4. Holy shit, man, fucking Panda. I love that we switched
Dude,
perspectives to Panda, but like this was
not my baby boy.
yeah, not my guy. And I love Panda because like, I don't know, he's like really smart, right? Like he's very logical. He considers things from like very logical points of view internally. And even in his dialogue sometimes, but for the most part he just talks like, I don't know, someone you work with at your job or something, you know what I
For
mean?
matter of fact.
Yeah, like I don't know, he's just like so casual and like chill, like personality wise, but then like internally, like his gears are spinning, like a genius, you know what I mean? He's very tactically aware, and intellectually present, but his personality, he kind of like comes off as like playful and like chill, like almost like a stoner friend or something, you know what I mean? I just love that about Panda. But holy shit, he ran into fucking Kashimo
Right away.
right away, man.
He got smoked too.
Yeah, got smoked.
See, the thing is, okay, so after seeing Hikari's stuff, I am feeling like Kashimo is like a old school sorcerer.
Definitely.
He's got a very traditional technique.
And he's
Um,
looking for Sukuna.
he's looking for Sakuna.
And he's got like an
Just
analog, like old school Kogane from what I can tell so far.
yeah, no frills, no weird little extra things. It's just
Yeah.
like little horn tail, classic skull face.
Yeah.
I like that it is a very much like a death's head Kogane with a little skull nose
Mm-hmm.
going on. Interesting that he like twigged on to like how it uses it, and he's like, "Hey, that dude a player? Is that bear a player? We're from the
Yeah.
zoo."
Yeah,
And it's like, it's a player.
I wonder what made him think like that. You know what I mean? Because obviously, Panda's trying to like be incognito, like and be seen as a regular
Mhm.
panda or wild animal to anyone that he comes across that he doesn't want to fight or whatever. But he's like having this moment inside himself where he's like, "Yo, I'm supposed to just be a teddy bear right now. I'm trying to be, not noticed. I don't want people to think I'm a player. I'm supposed to like get this information
Mhm.
and do what I'm supposed to do." But he's like, "Wait a minute, fuck that. I am a panda. Let me do panda stuff." And then he's like having his little moment, and then Kashimo just conveniently walks out from around the corner and he's like so shocked and like reacting like a person noticing someone coming around the corner, not a panda or not like a wild animal. And maybe that's what Kashimo noticed, because then also he's like standing on his feet, I think.
At the
And then
time,
and then as soon as Kashimo comes around the corner, he's like, "Oh, that's right. I'm a teddy bear. Like
I'm a bear.
I'm supposed to be a wild animal." And then Kashimo's like, "Man, wait a minute. Nah, hey, Kogane, is this a player?" Yeah, I think that's how it
He's like,
kind of went.
he's like, a bear? Are
Yeah.
you? Is this from the fucking zoo?
Yeah.
I don't know. This could be a Shigami or something.
Yeah.
Kogane, is this a player? It's a player.
Yeah, just
Immediately.
being safe, being like it shows the tactical, and intellectual competence of Kashimo right away to just be like,
Mhm.
something's not right about this. This is kind of random, and this bear is acting kind of dudeish.
Us.
So I'm gonna just pull up Kogane just in case. You never know.
Uh, exactly. Plus, like, it's in a shipping yard, so it's like, why is a bear here?
Right,
Like, what? Like, nothing about this is green. Like, what would draw a panda bear here? Like, not food, not water. Like,
right,
it's very bereft of resources that would be useful for a bear.
right,
And the fact that he was like standing up, wiping his brow like a man,
right.
like, just like, oh.
Yep. It's like, oh
Um,
shit. Is my
yeah,
cover
dude,
blown? Oh no. And then he starts beating his fucking ass and we get this confirmation, because
immediately.
we know that the first time we saw Kashimo, he had this fucking like rod and he like blew a hole in someone. And I think that there was like maybe an electric effect that was left behind,
Hmm.
in the scene or whatever that you can notice and be like, okay, so this dude uses electricity. But then Panda's like, nah, wait a minute, I've taken a couple hits from this motherfucker. And it's just like New Way, like its cursed energy behaves like a current of electricity. They're in a constant state of electrification, which is just like really interesting, and cool as fuck. Like what
Yeah,
the fuck? Like what a cool fighting style. But then he's like, "Ah, shit. It's impossible to defend against something like that." But that's all right cuz I got a move that's like kind of the same way. And he goes into this unblockable drumming beat and he tried to use this ability at the end of the Shibuya incident against Kenjaku and Uraume. You know what I
mm,
mean? And he was like loading it up, like just about to do it. And we were all like, what's that about? That looks cool. Unblockable. Holy shit. And then it gets interrupted by like, I think Uraume like flash froze them or something like that, like as he was about to let it off. So we didn't actually get to see it used. But now we're getting it here. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, we're seeing what it can do, but it's still like ineffective. But Kashimo, explains what it is. Oh, okay, it's internal damage, so it's kind of like Ryo or something, or Ashigara Dokoi in like One Piece when Sentomaru fucking blasts Luffy away in Shibandi, you know what I mean, or whatever. It's that internal damage, like impact dials in
yeah,
Skypiea, from One Piece and whatnot. So it's an attack that works like that. But this is just going back to what we were saying in the Sakamoto Days segment and in the Ayashimon segment. It's like, yes, hype, because we're finally seeing this unblockable drumming beat attack. It looks like he has an answer for the ass whooping that he's receiving, but just because it's a good idea and a new strategy and something that you feel like is a counter to what you're experiencing doesn't mean it's always going to be effective. And that's that like hope slash despair trade-off that like Gege is really fucking good at. If there's
mhm,
anyone, to use as an example for a good balance of hope and dread, it's definitely Akutami Gege. So I love that we're seeing that here in this conflict, because it's like, I don't want Panda to lose, but Panda, is tough and he, is really with the shits, and like he's got a really strong kit on his hands, so we thought. And then we finally
mhm.
see the fucking like mother mode, or not mother mode, the
Big
sister
sister
mode.
mode.
Yeah, that he's been holding down since the fucking Mekamaru fight in the exchange event, or the
People
the
called it
Goodwill arc.
Rhino mode, but it
Yeah.
reminds me of Triceratops straight up.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
if you look at page 15, she's got three horns and like big bug eyes, and then like the kind of triceratops like fluted shell
Yeah.
dome
It is more
going
of
on.
like a dinosaur. Yeah.
And then when she's getting blown up on like 18, you can see scales and hatch mark for like lizardy skin.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Like very Jurassic Park. And like that's amazing because like I think it's kind of funny that like I remember Twitter going off about like Hikari's gonna get gapped by Charles. Hikari's gonna get gapped. He's gonna get gapped. He's gonna get gapped. And then we watch Panda get all three of his modes just get the stuffing beat out of them.
Yeah.
They literally beat the stuffing out of this cursed doll. And like I love Panda, but he got smoked
Yeah.
hard. Like page 6, literal stuffing and like vital fluids escaping his body.
Right.
Like
But he ate that shit though. He was like right back up, like ready to fight again, like in a new form. You know what I mean? So we know that he can take one hell of a hit. And the unblockable drumming beat, it looks like it made contact just enough for Kashimo to decipher what kind of attack it was. But before it connected fully, Kashimo kind of, dodges it at like the last moment by like kind of like weaving into, Panda, and kind of just like, so it like kind of like grazes you, like you feel yourself getting like hit on the shoulder and you kind of like go with the momentum of the strike to kind of like reduce the effect, and kind of like rolled into Panda to get the fucking leverage of the staff over the arm to break it off in the next panel. So like the choreography there was super cool, and just like that brief little exchange there, which I liked a lot.
When I saw it, I saw him like raise up and doing kind of like that elbow
Yep.
plus the knee block,
Yep.
which is like a kung fu thing.
Yep.
Like, so he's definitely got like kung fu martial arts training and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was seeing that his feet were off the ground. So part of me was like, he took the hit in the air and like experienced it, understood that it was an internal damage thing. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, not bad. So it's like he took a little bit of damage,
Yeah.
but like Kashima's a tough mofo.
Absolutely.
And then rolled into it further into their range, rips off his arm.
Yeah, wild. Like,
He says
holy shit.
he's like not bad, but not very good either.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're super average. And I love the like outwitting yourself moment that Panda displays.
Yes.
Right? Where he gets like uses his arm to like blind him, and just he assumes that he's gonna go for behind, punches behind himself, leaves himself wide open.
Yep. And then boom, 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 boom. The combo 3-piece with a biscuit. Bow, bow, bow. And then poo, the palm strike into the fucking boxes behind him. It's like, yeah.
5 bams. He hits that guy 5 times, and then for the 6th time, just palm strikes him into a crate.
Yeah, into a crate. Yeah, that shit was fucking wild. What an ass whooping. And then he's like, all right, fuck it, sister mode, here we go. And Kashimo, kind of seems to be able to recognize the threat of sister mode. It's like, holy shit, this is not the same Panda Man that I was fighting a moment ago. And completely switches strategies and was like, this isn't something that I can deal with in hand-to-hand combat like the other 2 forms. And then instantly goes into this, positive and negative charge
that needs built up
distribution or whatever, or discharge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think discharge was the word that I was looking for there. But yeah, which is cool because it's like almost like a mini acknowledgement of the threat potential of sister mode. So it definitely is very like Gege to not show the full potential of a character before killing them. But Panda is, on a little bit more tougher side, like durability and endurance wise, I want to assume. So I don't think that Panda is entirely out after something like this, even though the damage looks fucking insane. And it's like, how could you possibly survive that? It looks like brains and shit are flying out everywhere. I want to believe that Panda is alive, but
like cotton stuffing, etc.
Yeah, but this was a big deal.
Because he is a death doll after all, made by the vice principal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
the principal, principal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even remember what his fucking name is.
No,
Yaga, yeah.
Yaga?
Masamichi Yaga. Yeah, you're totally right. Principal Yaga, absolutely.
I always mix him up the name up because like Yaga seems like an old man's name, so I
Right.
think of the old headmaster type guy. That's like,
Gakuganji.
yeah, there we go.
Mm-hmm.
I always get those two names mixed up because I'm just like, no, one sounds like older, to
Yeah,
me.
for sure.
Um,
I'm right there with you.
but I love that Triceratops mode because that's cool. That looks cool. She reminds me of like a Ranger Reject bad guy,
Yeah,
like
straight up.
executive.
Yeah,
I'm
she do look kind
hell
of
yeah.
executive-ish. Yeah, and I love the little dialogue, like the little personality that Panda gives her, the very brief line of dialogue. Like my big sister is a shy girl. Anyone who meets her eyes, she kills to hide her embarrassment. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Berserker.
yeah, like that's probably like not like the explanation for it, but that's just a cool way to explain like how ruthless and vicious this form of his is. You know what I mean? It's just like cool little badass dialogue subtext like that.
It it makes sense because it's like there's a dinosaur, right? Like a
Right.
panda and a gorilla are animals that can be kept in captivity and like are handleable. But like we can't do that. We have several movies of why that's not a thing with
Right.
dinosaurs. So like
Yeah.
the raw animal power of a dinosaur is just like, yeah, no, it's a killer. Like
Yeah.
this is what no.
Right.
Um
The
I
technique
like
of Kashimo, though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I like the technique. I was just
Yeah.
about to go into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, the fact that it's like while it's a hand-to-hand situation, they're boxing with you and planting these positive charges on you. At the same time, every punch landed creates a negative charge inside of Kashimo. And then whenever hand-to-hand combat becomes not an option, Kashimo can just discharge all of the negative, charges that he stacked up inside of himself that immediately attack towards the positive charges that were left on the enemy from their hand-to-hand endeavors. So like it's undodgeable, just like a sure hit technique inside of a domain, but without actually having to expand one. So it's like
Huh.
really broken. If that, I think that's the way that I kind of like understood it, because it's like Kashimo separates the
Yeah.
cursed energy's charge like electricity. When striking an opponent, a positive charge is transferred, and the negative charge in Kashimo is discharged to the target without losing any electricity toward the ground. This results in lightning that rends the air and can't miss without a need to cast a domain. So it's basically like I tag you a bunch physically, hand to hand, boom, 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 positive charge, positive charge, positive charge. Negative charges are building up inside of me. Once we stop boxing, I can send those negative charges to you, the target that has the
Yeah.
positive charges on it. And it's just like has to go to it. It's like instantly like attracted to it. You know what I mean? Like it.
I imagine it as he's splitting, or they are splitting the charge, like cursed energy charge.
Hmm.
They hit them, they create that like difference of like overwhelming positive energy, and they hold on to that negative energy. And then when they want to release it, they alter their cursed energy so that it creates an equilibrium, and that realignment to create an equilibrium causes the lightning.
That's cool too.
Um, I
Absolutely.
think I think that's because it reminded, like we were talking about like a Yashimon, right? Where it's like the absorption of heat, like heat is naturally dissipated. So like even electricity is a very similar concept where it's like, negative and positive charges, they always try to find like an equilibrium. And so by he's weaponized that equilibrium that he is used to build up during the physical fight.
Hmm.
That's so wild.
Yeah, that's just
That's
like so
terrifying.
cool. Like yeah, like that's such a tight ability. Like it sounds like something that you would see like in a video game.
Oh,
You know?
whoa. I just thought of something. Higuruma is like the ideal counter to this guy,
Yeah.
the lawyer,
Yeah.
because he's like, hey, did you do this thing? And if Kashimo doesn't want to play, he'll just like say whatever. And then the judge will be like,
You're guilty.
bam,
No technique.
guilty, guilty, no technique. And so it doesn't matter if he can do that or not. He
Yeah.
just can't use that ability. And then it's just a physical fight. Or,
Higuruma is like a hard counter to like everybody with that kind of like aspect to his fucking like domain. It's like if I put you in my in my courtroom and find you guilty, like taking away someone's technique is a hard counter to like anybody. You know what I mean? Because like their technique is like everything for these fighters.
true,
So,
true.
well, not
I was
everything,
thinking
but yeah,
because like Kashimo is like a little bit like Yuji,
yeah,
where it's like because Yuji does like the Sun Wu, the breaker kind of thing, where he hits the black fash. There's the second impact, kind of like that booming drum,
Mm.
is what reminds me of. Because like Sun Wu like punched, um, like the water tank, and then it explodes out the back
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like their abilities are in the similar, very similar vein. So by like sealing their cursed energy, that would be the most immediate problem because like Kashimo's energy, like electrified state of electrification, seems like a way method of using one's aura in a similar way to like Hikari, where his aura is jagged.
Mm.
So I feel like they're similar in that aspect.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this eventual Kashimo versus Hikari conflict is gonna be fucking insane, especially after he just fucking faded Panda, like, you know, Hikari's like
Immediately.
right hand in the culling games. It's like, oh no. When he finds out like that Panda got done in by Kashimo, that's just going to add more emotion to their fight. And it's just gonna
Mhm.
be a sight to behold.
So I wonder if like Panda's gonna survive this one.
I think
Like
so.
he's like, because he's like, hey, tell me about Sukuna, and I won't kill you.
Yeah.
So like, does this mean that Panda, valuing his own life, gives information? And like, if so, how accurate is that information? How in depth is that information?
Yeah.
How much is he willing to give for his life?
Yeah,
And
he's
then
either going to say like I'm not telling you shit, or he's going to lie and tell like half truths to like, you know, that won't put Yuji in danger because he's thinking about Yuji, you know, the first time she asked him about it. He's like, "Hey, you know where Sukuna's at?" And he's like, "Hold on, what page is it?"
I think I have an uncle that name.
Yeah, hold on, what page is it? Fucking
14.
Yeah, 14. Do you know where Sukuna is? And then he instantly thinks, what do they want Sukuna for? I doubt it's good for Itadori. He's like, no. So he's like clearly trying to protect Yuji. I can't see him in the sake of self-preservation selling Yuji out just to live. So I think that he either just says fuck you and dies maybe, or something else happens that interrupts them before he can be executed, but still doesn't give the information, or he is just like, okay, I'll tell you what you want to know, but you know, does it like Sunraku would, where he gives you like just enough information to make it
Mm.
sound like he's told you everything you want to know, but hasn't given you the true
Hisoka method.
information. Yeah, exactly. So because it's like, all right, he's definitely not dead by the end of the chapter because after this crazy attack, Kashimo is still trying to talk to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like blood is like spurting everywhere. The last panel is now where's Sukuna, so he's clearly still trying to have a conversation with Panda despite this ridiculous amount of damage that Panda just took.
Oh,
So
and it's a good way because they used the Kogane to like figure out if he's a player. So like they're also going to use the Kogane to like they're not dead yet. I haven't been given points. They're still alive. Hey,
oh
where's the dude?
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Where's the man?
Kogane has to tell him you have 5 points, yeah. And that hasn't
Being
happened yet. Mm-hmm.
um I do not want to hear Kogane 5 points added to
I
Kashimo.
know, please, no, not Panda. I wonder what Kashimo wants Sukuna for. Like, do you think it's gonna be because they want revenge, or there's some kind of like grudge that they had back in the day, or something? You think it's gonna be a fight, or do you think it's like it wants to be like a conversation, like yo, I'm trying to work, you know, with you again. I used to be on your team back in the day, type shit. Like, let's
Is it
get,
an admirer?
yeah, like let's get the
Like
old gang back together, type shit.
and like there was a moment where Sukuna is like, "Oh, you don't understand what a concept of a curse is." Like he was talking down to like
Jogo.
other sentient curses like, "Oh, you have no idea what you really are."
Mm-hmm.
And so part of me wonders if Kashimo is kind of like an adherent to like was like the old-timey adherent to Ryomen Sukuna because they're just like, I like what you're saying, but like none of the world seems to be there yet.
Mm.
And now that they've got this second lease on life, they're like, hey, this is a new world. Sukuna has to be here,
Right,
right? Like
right.
Sukuna was so strong. They have to be here. I'm gonna go find them and see if they've spread their ideology or like if their teachings have been accepted yet or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because they don't seem like actively malicious,
Right.
right? Like they're not like cruel. but they're definitely efficient and
Yeah,
lethal.
they got a goal. It's like I'm trying to get this money. I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do, and anyone that gets in my way that I like stumble across is getting, you know, the business, because I need these points because they're going to give me the ability to add the rules that I want to add to the game that will help me accomplish my goals. It's not just running around, you know, and massacring people willy-nilly. I mean, everyone is kind of doing that, but I see what you're saying though in regard to like how he doesn't really feel too malicious. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
He just feels motivated to accomplish
Yeah,
something.
I think that like I imagine him like being admiring Sukuna is when he like was basically grading Panda. He
Yeah,
was like, "Oh, you know that's okay. You're actually kind of weak.
yeah,
No, yep, that's
yep.
it."
Weak as
It was a
hell.
very
Yep.
matter of fact, and so I think that he respects strength or seeks out strength for whatever purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm excited to learn more about Kashimo because they've made a ton of impact
Yeah.
off this chapter for me.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I am deeply invested in like my curiosity.
Same. But otherwise, a pretty straightforward chapter. Like we got like everything kind of just laid out on the sleeve. It's like we switched to the panda perspective. Panda's having like an internal struggle where he's like, "Yo, I'm supposed to be hiding, but like I'm totally a panda. I should love the fact that I'm a panda and be a panda." And then like that kind of made him run into Kashimo. Kashimo wants to find Sukuna, thinks that he can get information from Panda about Sukuna because of the way that Panda reacted when he asked him about it. They square up. We get information about Panda's techniques, we get information about Kashimo's techniques, and then Kashimo just beats the shit out of him and continues his interrogation. Pretty straightforward, um, but beautiful chapter regardless. I love that we switch perspectives here. I wonder if we're going to go back to Hikari after this, or if we're going to continue, you know, this scene in the next chapter, or if we go somewhere else inside of Tokyo Colony 2.
Ooh, I imagine that like the first half of the chapter is gonna, or like most of the first next chapter is like Kashimo getting information out of Panda, and Panda's just like, "Ah, Sukuna's one of my friends, and like one of the people I'm looking for. And then they're like, who are you looking for? A friend. Do you know their name? I'm not gonna tell you. And he's like, I'll kill you. And he's like, well, then you'll never know. And he's
Yeah.
like,
Whatever. I'll get the information from someone else then. You gotta have more friends.
then I think
He's friends
Kashimo
with a
would be like,
panda.
I think, but then Kashimo would be like, you know what? I'm gonna keep you alive so that anybody you view as a friend, I'm immediately going after.
Mm,
You know, and then forcing him along
yeah, that's
because
cool.
like he's got that like Sun Wukong kind of vibe, so I could see Kashimo just having beating the stuffing out of Panda and like riding him around as like kind of like a shame thing. It's like, well, you're not really cooperating with me, but you gave me a little bit, so I'll let you live, but you're not gonna like it.
Right.
Um, Also because he's like, you're cool. You turned into a gorilla. You turned into a triceratops. Nasty.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so I just imagine him having like, I want the novelty of riding a panda. That's what I want.
Uh,
Um, Hopefully, and then cut to Hikari just having absolutely dominated Charles. It's like, yes, nerd.
yeah. And then he's hype off that, like, all right, got this dude out of here real quick. That was fun. Wonder where Panda is. Just like
Sees him
dismembered
being used
panda
as a
body.
mount.
Yeah.
Being used as a mount. He's
Oh,
like,
used as a mount would be fucked up. Panda's not going out like that. Absolutely
yeah,
not.
but
Hell
like
no.
that would definitely set Hikari off.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I think that like if Kashimo's like, "Oh, it's one of your friends," well, they probably wouldn't like this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do this so that even if you don't point them out, they'll point themselves out.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I just want to hope that Panda is,
I just want him to live.
yeah, I want him to live, and I like hope that he's, a real one till the end. You know what I'm saying? Like he's constantly looking out for his people. He thinks about like others like a lot more than I feel like other people think about others. I feel like that's like a defining trait inside of
Yeah.
Panda, that he's just like the wholesome like uncle, dad, kind of like make sure everyone is like cool. Like kind of like group
Yeah.
mom in that way. You know what I mean?
I
So like
think
I don't want to see him selling out Yuji or becoming a subordinate of Kashimo for the sake of his like of self-preservation or something like that. I want him to go out like a thug or just like manipulate Kashimo in some kind of way, because he is wildly intelligent at the end of the day. So I think he can talk himself out of a situation if he needed to.
I'm hoping so. I'm
Yeah.
hoping so. 'Cause, like I feel like of course Panda like values everything
Hmm.
because of his like extremely unique existence.
Hmm.
He's a very lonely individual, and so like the fact that he has any people to care about is like, more precious, and he's like more willing to think about them
Right.
than the average person who's like, yeah, no, if I most people are like, if I upset somebody, I can go out to any place and I can meet five new people, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I yeah, epic chapter. I don't think I had anything else for Jujutsu this week though.
Mm-mm.
All right, good shit. That'll do it for Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 184. All right, moving into My Hero Academia chapter 352. Ultimate moves. Beautiful chapter.
Yeah, this was really cool. And like I've been waiting with anticipation for like a My Hero chapter. Like,
Yeah, finally got my hero back.
oh, finally. It's been so long, baby. You look as beautiful as the day I left you. It's just it's been really good. This was another one. This is something that we've talked about a lot on our show before, with like translational differences between the series.
Mm,
There's parts that I think that the fan translations for TCB was really solid. I like the language. It's, I feel like, a little more clear, especially on um, like 2-3 when he's explaining his ability.
hmm.
So like in the official translation, we talk about like my old man sought out ice that could stifle that inner heat,
Hmm.
uh, which to me was like, okay, I mean, I guess, but like he was talking about, it's like my old man wanted to reduce the body's internal temperature by introducing ice as a coolant, and so having the, you know, the original, the official says I'm going in the other direction, and then the TCB is like, on the hand, I'm doing the opposite. I found the TCB was much more clear
Yeah,
about what was going on with his ability, because I was like, what do you mean the other direction of like stifling heat? And then saying, oh, instead of having heat to with ice as a coolant, he's going for freezing with heat to keep himself from shutting down. And
right.
I was like, that makes way more sense to me. So like at first I was like, I don't quite get it. I mean, I can see the effects of what he's saying
Hmm.
because it's a visual medium, but like I think linguistically I was not quite there until
Yeah.
I read the TCB, um, which is something I don't always do. Like I did this like today.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I usually try to I probably read the TCB for everything, that I read that comes out on it. So like One Piece, Jujutsu Kaisen, and My Hero
Mhm.
Academia specifically. So I'll usually read that on Friday and then read the chapter again on Sunday officially. But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like and obviously I don't read the raws, like for any of these manga or whatever, but something I have a feeling, an intuition, something tells me that the TCB translations are a lot closer to literal than, the Viz translations are, or the Viz translations
Yeah.
are usually. You know what I mean? I feel like Viz takes a little bit more liberties, or simplifies certain lines of dialogue for the sake of whatever, American audiences, or a combination of different reasons and factors or whatever. But for some reason, TCB just feels like a lot better a lot more of the time than Viz translations usually do.
If Yeah, it feels more fluid in this one,
Yeah.
especially like the way the language comes off. I'm just like, okay, yeah, this linguistically makes sense to me. This reads more naturally, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, like especially on this, I don't know if I had to point one out just because I'm looking at the page. Where is it? Uh, Hold on one second. Why is it always so hard for me to find the thing once I start looking for it? Okay, so he comes out of the thing. Oh yeah, burning and them take the shit. Okay, page 10. Heat that can even burn me. I'm sorry, you guys. And then Burnen's like, quit it, save your energy. And then he's like, just let me say one thing then. Thank you. Right? And then that's the Viz. But then in the TCB, like those flames were hot enough to have burnt me for sure. Thank you. And Vernon's like, I told you, don't waste your energy. And then he says, if I had to summarize all my thoughts into one phrase, all I'd say is thank you so much. You know what I mean? And that like line of like dialogue across those three panels, I feel like does more for the scene, right?
Yes.
Because in the Viz, he just says heat that can burn me. I'm sorry, you guys. But then in the TCB, he says those flames were hot enough to have burnt me for sure, kind of emphasizing the fact that Burnin and the others took that hit for him.
Yes.
You know what I
Like they
mean?
absorbed, like they doled the impact
Yeah.
of that. And
Yeah.
like
Those flames
it
were hot enough to have burnt me for sure if these guys didn't block it. It's conveyed a lot more vividly in the TCB than heat that can even burn me. Dot dot dot. I'm sorry, you guys. It's like it doesn't like really like hit the same. Like we know that they jumped in front of the attack and took it for him, so whatever you can fill in the gaps. But
yeah.
linguistically, that just slaps harder. And then for him to say, if I had to summarize all my thoughts into one phrase, all I'd say is thank you so much. That feels so much more personal and so much more like I want to say so many things to you guys right now, but all I'm going to say is thank you because I'm supposed to be saving my energy and not wasting time. But in the Viz, it's just like, let me just say this then, thank you. And it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't hit as hard in the official as it does in the TCB, considering that this is supposed to be very emotional stuff going on right now. You
Even
really
the
want.
font is different too. It's
Yeah,
like the thank you is like, okay, it's well, it's not quite Comic Sans, but like it's a little blocky. Whereas like the thank you so much from TCB is like very sketchy. Like
yeah,
it's like bursting out of him, ripping
right.
out of him. It's very quick. It gives that feeling. There was this one where I think it's like 6 and 7, right? Where they are fighting each other, and let's see. Do. Perfect. Just a minute for job. That was this. That was fine. But the page 7,
Page
where
seven.
he's like,
Okay.
page 7 was the one where they're talking about like the limitation is like we might share the same. It's like even though we should. Okay, so DCB is like, oh, okay.
yeah,
Let me start this again.
yeah, yeah.
I'm flipping two and I'm crossing wires. My
Yeah,
brain's
no,
like,
you're good. Yeah,
okay.
I could tell
So
that that's what was going on too. I was like, oh shit, let
so
me find the page on TCB and let me find
yeah.
the page on Viz. Yeah, for sure.
So for Viz, they say you go on and on about right and wrong choices. We might share the same blood, but we ended up real different. It's like the limitations of a superpowered society. That's us. You hear me? A warped rail can never mingle with a straight and narrow one. And he talks about running in parallel but forever apart, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, and it makes sense given the context. But I liked the language of Dobby in the TCB scan. He's like, "What a wonderful sense of morality you have, brother. I always knew it. Even though we're bounded by blood, we're nothing alike. This is a side effect of superhuman society. We are the absolute limit. Once you stray from the right path, there's no turning back."
Yeah.
And it feels
It has
more
more personality
impactful.
to it. It sounds like
Yeah.
he's like giving a backhanded compliment to Shoto at first in the
Mm-hmm.
TCB dialogue bubble at the top, where he says, huh, "What a wonderful sense of morality you have, brother." That seems like more of a personal attack, a
Like a
more like
jibe.
yeah, like a jab. You know what I mean? Like a rivalry, like brother to brother, like personal jab. You know, like making fun of his platitudes and his sense of morality. But then in the
Which is
Viz, it's
what he
just you
does
go on
best.
and on about right and wrong choices. It's like it just doesn't hit the same
Sounds
on
like
a
he's tired of hearing it.
yeah, like on a personal like brother level. You know, like what a wonderful sense of morality you have, brother. Slaps harder than you go on and on about right and wrong
It's
choices.
because like Dobby's more about like mockery and
Exactly,
and
exactly.
like dragging people down as opposed to ignoring them because
Right,
he pays very close attention to people despite his aloof initial introduction.
right.
Um, and then the whole like I just felt like the side effect of superhuman society, we are the absolute limit, was just like that just goes hard. That's just a
Yeah,
really hard line. Instead of saying like the limitations of superpowered society, that's us. Because like, what does that mean? Like, are they symbolic of the limitations of superpowered society? That like once, using your powers for evil, you can never be redeemed. That the idea, because like if you go with like a warped rail can never mingle with the straight and narrow ones, like we have powers. The moment you use your powers for evil, you can never be redeemed. You can never change. You cannot mingle with things. Whereas opposed to like the TCB thing, it's just like, you know, we are the absolute limit. We are constantly pushing forward. And then, yeah, I don't know. There's
Yeah, I feel you.
oh,
I feel
there's
what you're saying.
linguistically things
Yeah, I
that
smell
just
what
kind
you
of,
stepping in, fam.
yeah.
Going back to
Um,
earlier in the chapter though, like when he's
mhm.
explaining the ability, and then fucking uh oh shit, what the fuck is this dude's name? The lightning dude, Kamino,
Denki.
Denki. Where was I getting that? Anyway, Denki is,
Danka.
yeah, he's poking the fucking fire or whatever. It's like, look, I could poke all I want without feeling the heat. Cool, right? And initially, I was like, okay, well then, like, what effect is this going to have if there's no heat, no cold, and it's just like the aesthetic of fire? Like, is this going to be like a concussive situation? Like, is he hitting him just like, you know, concussively?
Mm.
Like since there's no heat or cold, at least not from what I like gathered with the Denki scene, it felt like there was just no like feeling at all at first, but clearly it's just not hot, and there is a cooling element to it that allows it to like come in contact with Dobby's fire and cool it down to a certain degree. Because I think that's exactly what he says. He's like, so he's got himself a body that can withstand scorching heat, and he found the power to chill my own inferno. So that lets me know that like if he had his own fire, if it was just fire versus fire, the flames would be going together and increasing the heat for both of them. And obviously, Dobby doesn't give a fuck about what kind of damage his body takes, but Shoto would. So he has to introduce this cooling element to create this
Mhm.
like equilibrium. You know what I mean? And it has to cool down Dobby's situation at least a little bit, which obviously it says that it does. But when I was looking at it, I was like, okay, it can't just be a fire on fire conflict because then it'll be too hot for Shoto. But then this cooling element brings down the heat of Dobby's fire while also seeming to have some kind of impact on Dobby. So maybe it is like kind of concussive to a certain degree. It's really hard with these elemental attacks, right? Because it's like,
Mhm.
what is forcing Dobby back here? It's not a blade of ice that hit his chest and sent him flying. It's some other kind of force. And it's like, what is the property of this force if it's not hot, but it's not really cold either? Because Denki didn't say like, oh, it's cold. So it's kind of like I don't know. It felt like it was explaining like a situation similar to like Dopo Akari
Mhm.
in Ayashimon, and how he
A
has
little
like
bit.
that flame that kind of like steals heat or whatever. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of like helping me get like a better visual. But then there's still like the I hit you with something and sent you flying, and it's like what properties does your attack have that could produce that kind of force and impact? So that's why I thought it was concussive initially,
Yeah.
but
Um,
I don't know.
as I read it, like it took me a couple reads, honestly, to get through this, to like figure out what was going on. But that's just like, that's my limitation as a reader a little bit.
Right.
And like maybe if this is like a color spread for that fight, that like Icebound Crash, Cold Flames, Pale Blade, I would have realized that he's literally just causing this giant like mini avalanche to manifest out of him,
Hmm.
and like just hitting him with a fuck ton of snow all at once.
Okay.
Um,
So
so
he's using the effect that he explains in the beginning of the chapter to be able to endure a close quarters encounter with Dobby in the first place. And then now that he has used this version of his flash fire fist that combines cold and hot blood or whatever to give
mhm.
him the defense that he needs to come this close to Dobby in the first place, considering Dobby's flames are too hot for Shoto normally. So now he enters this state that allows him to take more heat and get closer to Dobby, and then maybe the Icebound Crash Cold Flames Pale Blade is just like a more ice heavy extension of that effect to produce this effect that knocks him back.
I think yeah, yes. That
So he's
it's
added more to this attack than what was originally explained in the beginning of the chapter for the sake
yes,
of dealing damage to Dobby. Okay,
yes.
okay, okay.
It's a defensive measure, but then it
Mm-hmm.
is also it serves as a supportive measure
Mm-hmm.
because in the first introduction of Shoto's powers, when he's going against Deku, he only used his ice powers, and he was like, I'm slowing down, my body's shutting off because I'm too cold. And then he uses his flame powers and like reaches a balance. And then we've kind of focused on him accepting his fire side. But this is a reverse where he's like, I'm not overly dependent on my fire side. I'm still embracing the cold side.
Yeah.
And like, I shouldn't have to compete with my brother and my father to prove whose flame is best. I was born with ice, so I'm going to finish this with ice, and I'm using my cold, heat, heart circulation method to survive using ice to a degree that I couldn't before.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, okay, this makes sense now. And
I like that a lot.
A couple times.
It's working in both ways. It's like, okay, I'm definitely making sure that I don't overheat by using this cooling system to allow myself to get closer to Dabi, but then I'm also using the heat from that exact same balance to allow myself to reach colder temperatures in my attack against Dabi.
Yeah, because we've seen him, like, do like the big, icicle blasts, but like we haven't really seen too much of that since. But like the Great Glacial Aegir or the Frozen Tsunami,
that shit was nuts,
nutty. Like that, he froze like a whole city block in a radius around him.
Yeah.
Like there's like buildings in the background that are still frozen, that are like not in the foreground, that are frozen too.
Right.
He like a whole block at least, maybe two.
Yeah.
And he's at the epicenter of that. The thing that I thought was interesting, I really liked the official's name for the Great Glacial Aegir, because Aegir is a type of sea and is actually a giant from Norse mythology of the sea.
Yeah.
And so like they are like, it's the north, so it's like the frozen sea, right? Like because it's Norse, it's mostly thing. But like Aegir is the son of Fornjotr, which translates roughly into early or old destroyer, which pretty much sums up, Endeavor pretty well.
Yeah. That's tight.
Aegir had a brother named Logi who was in charge of fire. So Logi is basically Dabi.
Yeah.
And then
that's cool. Wait.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
They're all giants,
tight.
right?
Yeah.
And so like Fornjotr had 6 children. Endeavor had a ton of children. Like,
he has
so like the
4?
whole idea of like lineage and having like giants struggling with their own power and like being embodiments of elements and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. And then like I liked the idea of like him being like the ocean, was like, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's super tight. The last double page spread like totally reminded me of Chainsaw Man, just in the way that it concluded with like the flashback of like the brothers and shit, like as children, or not flashback, but just like the imagery of young Shoto and young Dabi, in the final spread before it actually shows the conclusion of the fight with Dabi, defeated, and Shoto, literally like connected to him, after punching his fucking lights out with this cold attack. Like, it just reminded me of, and reminded a lot of people of Chainsaw Man. I think I even saw on Twitter someone was like, Chainsaw Man did it better, or something like that. And then someone was like, what's the point of comparing these things? Like, these are two completely different situations, and like two completely different characters that mean completely different things to the plot and themselves. Like, why is this even a comparison right now? And then like someone was like, because of the imagery of like them as children during the fight. And it's like, why?
No, children. Yeah. I mean,
why is that
flashbacks is like a staple of manga.
And like, sure, aesthetically, like there's like a lot, that's similar about this last page, because if you look at the last page of the Aki and Denji fight, it kind of like ends similarly with Aki like hanging on Denji after being defeated or whatever. So like that's cool too. But like, is aesthetics enough to, create toxic discourse on the internet? Like what compels people to see a scene, get
Uh,
reminded of
I
another one, and then instantly go, one is better than the other? It's like, why does that have to be an argument? Why does that have to be a conversation just because things
um
are aesthetically similar? It's so stupid to me.
I think that like because like the shared scenery is like, but like in manga, like there's a lot of scenery, like scenes where there's just like we are family, we were friends, we loved each other for whatever reason, we are pitted against each other, and like
Yeah,
we fight each other, and like even though we were violent towards each other, we still want to embrace each other. And so there's always that like leaning on a person that you've defeated. Like that's happened in Naruto, that's happened in
yeah,
Trigun, like
right.
so many series. And it's just like I think that for like Twitter and stuff, I feel like it's just them saying like, "Ooh, here's a low-hanging fruit. I'm gonna say this is better." And then if people argue with me, that means my tweet gets
Yeah,
content,
sure.
likes,
No
dislikes,
such thing as
comments.
bad publicity or whatever the fucking like
Yeah,
shit. But it's just like, dude, you
it's
can notice a similarity in something without drawing lines in the fucking sand. You know what I mean? Like, you don't
yeah.
have to like see that something is similar to something else. You could just say Chainsaw Man vibes. This was really cool or something. Like, why do you have to
Yeah.
instantly think about which one did it better? Like, you've been on the
Uh,
internet way too fucking long.
Incendiary comments tend to generate more traction with comments
That's
and
right.
like
That's right.
interaction,
Yeah.
and that the algorithm literally feeds on that
Sure.
and like pushes that stuff to the top.
Yeah.
So like that's the stuff that we see all the time.
Sure.
Like there's plenty of people that I follow and they follow me back and we're like, "Oh, yeah, that was pretty cool." But like those are not the things that I see immediately.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Tech talks for another day.
yeah.
Uh,
I don't know. Did you have anything else for My Hero this week, man?
I really liked what this meant for Shoto, right? Because he
Yeah.
always struck like I like that this is kind of like his acceptance of his like this is his full circle. I've come to accept both parts of myself. And for a long time he's like I've rejected the fire, now I've accepted it, and then he's like I'm not going to hold on to this fire and make it a contest of fire because that was the problem that started all this anyway, and I have all this anyway, so why don't I just apply the same logic but reverse it? And it worked out for him. It worked great. Like that's actually like a really smart thing to be like I can do catastrophic amounts of ice damage without hurting myself now
Right.
because he's found thermal equilibrium, and I think it's very poetic that he's circling it around his heart, and the idea that like um he's not overtaken by his burning passions but also not like cold and cut off, and that he's found like this nice balance between the two because like his whole quirk initially was called half hot half cold,
Hmm.
whereas now it's more like hot and cold.
Right.
Yeah.
That's tight.
So yeah, I appreciate that kind of like
Con-
personal balance in his life.
Conceptual, signal or conceptual like showing of his growth. You know what I mean? It was half
Hmm.
cold, half hot before. Now the explanation it makes more sense to be cold and hot rather than one or the other.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate this, and also I think it's important that like it was mentioned in the beginning, and this is another translation difference, but like the TCB said, is like, father's annoyed that he won't be able to keep his promise, but we'll let that be his punishment. The others made a wise decision. Dabi's a product of our family's sins. Besides, if I want to become a hero, this is the one fight I can't run away from. And I
Yeah.
really liked that. And like, maybe that's because I came from the Bible Belt and I was raised in a pretty religious environment. So like, the idea of like the sins of the father passed to the son, that's
Right.
language I was very familiar with. So maybe it's just something I relate better to.
Hmm.
Um, it's because in the official, it's like um, if my old man is going to gripe about not fulfilling his promise, if we think of it as a punishment, then Hawks and them made a wise choice. David's existence is my family's crime. Besides, in order to reach the heights I'm aiming for, I can't run from this. But like, it feels a little more clinical in the
More
official
clinical.
translation. like the clinical his the language like
Yeah.
Dabi's existence is my family's crime,
Hmm.
and it's just like it feels like a very sterile way to say like he fucked up.
Right.
Um,
I just want to
and
confirm that
then
that's what you said because you kind of cut out for a sec.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, clinical, and then like saying besides, in order to reach the heights I made before, I can't run from this. Um, it sounds like he has ambitions, which is like his father's problem, as opposed to like the DCB ones. Like if I want to become a hero, period, I can't run from this fight.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that just feels like better resolve from like a better place of the heart.
Yeah. And like constantly like weaving like the established, rules, unspoken and spoken rules of heroism. You know what I mean? Like they're constantly rehashed in My Hero Academia. Like what it means to be a hero is very clearly defined in this story, whether it's like through like straight dialogue and exposition or like shown through the actions and like internal monologues of characters and whatnot. But like we know exactly what My Hero Academia as a story believes the proper like way of the hero is. You know what I mean? And to constantly have those principles woven, organically into the character arcs of everyone involved in the story just makes a really great feeling narrative. You know what I mean? Like all things are being considered and all things work together to produce effects and conflict resolution. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It feels thorough. It feels well planned. It feels, like someone who still has a really good handle on their story. And they better because we're almost towards the end. You know what I mean? But a lot of for a lot of series, the wheels like start to fall off the wagon,
Around this
like
point.
around this point where, it almost feels entirely different than, the what was established in the beginning that made us fall in love with it in the
Yeah.
first place. And we're still here for the ride because we want to see the conclusion of the story, but it feels like a lot of stories end up feeling so disconnected from, the initial um atmosphere of the
Premise.
story in the beginning and the
Yeah.
premise and the concepts and whatnot that laid down the foundation for the narrative a lot of times end up getting forgotten about, you know what I mean, or they get away from the
Mm-hmm.
writer, you know what I mean. Like I feel like this is a complaint I hear about people when they talk about Naruto and how like the end of
Yeah.
Naruto feels starkly different than the beginning of Naruto
It's kind of
inside
what
of
lost me on Naruto, because I
yeah
remember like I fell in love with like the tactical,
yeah type
like
shit,
combat stuff and like the choreography and
sneaky
like the
sleights of
idea of like
hand and deception
just
and behind the
just
back strategies. Yeah,
and then it became sort of a power series, and I was
yeah,
like, this is a little off to me. I was like, hey, we're gonna be stealthy, fireballs forever, and I'm just
yeah.
like, what the fuck
Or
happened
just
here?
like kaiju summon battle,
Yeah.
you know,
Um, but yeah,
Pokemon
I feel
battle.
like in My Hero,
Yeah.
this is like they've kept through that very well,
They've kept
and
that
like
energy the whole time. Like they are constantly
so
calling
well.
back to that writing. You know what I mean?
Like this, like for Shoto's arc, this is super satisfying for me. I love this, um, and like I wonder if Dobby's gonna have any, like he has a little bit of face left. I wonder if he's gonna have any left for an actual funeral, and like
Oh shit.
if this fight was enough to, because he was like planning to die anyway. He was fighting with no intentions of survival.
Oh, you think he's dead here?
I wonder if he's going to survive. Like, even if he's alive after this fight,
Hmm.
I don't know how long he's going to survive.
Right. Because we've definitely seen
And
in My Hero Academia that people, survive the initial trauma, that they the
mhm.
physical like damage that they received when the fight is going on, and then look at Night Eye.
Night Eye,
Brought him to a
absolutely
hospital and he died later. You know what I mean? So
midnight,
yeah,
and so I imagine something along that lines. But if he lingers, I think it'd be important for Mama Todoroki
mm,
to be there, and like, even though like your son is a monster by most people's standards, including society, especially in society, but like it's still, part of you.
right.
And anything that you loved, even a small bit, even if that love is in the past,
Hmm.
um, you know, closure is important,
Right.
especially for like a multi-generational trauma that is the Todoroki family. I think
Right.
closure would be really important, and like I think it's like like it's like when anything dies in your family, you should make a point to like try to be there for someone in their dying moments, or like at least to be there for the funeral or something.
Right.
Like when like I've had a lot of cats in my life. Like
Mhm.
I try when we had to put down a cat, I am there through the injection to comfort them till they die. And I
Right.
do that every single time because I feel like
That's love.
it's important. That's
Yeah.
important. I like I mean, that's how movies are portrayed, right? Like the old man in the bed, and he's like, "Oh, I'm surrounded by my family.
Right.
I've done a beautiful job raising all these beautiful children."
Yeah.
And like, you want that, right? Like so
Absolutely.
not to get too morose, but
Right. 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 Right.
it's just something that I'm thinking about as form of like character story resolution because it's
Yeah.
more than just the individual combatants.
Yeah, I wonder what kind of closure we're gonna get for the Todoroki family now that, like, the brother versus brother physical conflict is over. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like, we know that Horikoshi Kohei cares a great deal about this family. He centered them, in the plot a great deal between Endeavor and Natsu and Dabi and Todoroki. Like, they've taken up a lot of the narrative. So I know that he's got, like, a pretty epic conclusion planned out. We've already gotten the physical side of that. So I can't wait to see what, like, the introspective character side looks like, because, like, that's, like, a major strength of Kohei in this story is the Todoroki subplot. So I'm excited to see how that gets wrapped up. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I had for My Hero this week, though. Did you have anything else?
No, I feel like I feel pretty satisfied.
All right, good shit. That'll do it for My Hero Academia, chapter 352. All right, moving into the final chapter of the night, the Piece de l'Existence, One Piece Wa, chapter 1049, The World That Should Be. Got this cover page, cover story. German 66's No Emotionless, or an Emotionless Excursion, Volume 11. Why? The book in the lab burned up, freeing the brothers.
Really?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the last one again. I think it was the one
They
with
had the one where
Brule and Cracker. We're at the mirror.
Yep, and he was like excited.
Yeah, hold on, I'm about to pull it up.
She was reaching into the book.
Yeah.
And then the other guy was like, exclamation point, candy cane.
Yeah, she's reaching. Okay, so she's looking at the mirror, and she's like Reiju and like, what is that, Ichiji or some shit? I can't even remember off the top of my head. One of the brothers, Reiju and one of the brothers, she's like noticing them coming to Chocolate Town or whatever and informing Cracker. And then in this one, the book in the lab burned up, freeing the brothers. I wonder how that even happened. Is that like because of Reiju and the other brother somehow? I can't even remember like what their elements are or properties of their abilities are or whatnot at this point, but
yeah, I always get them mixed up, to be honest, because like
too.
Very similar outfits.
Someone got a firepower on the team. I don't know.
Yeah. And we might find out in the next one and just like have kind of like a reveal, like it was I that set the book ablaze.
Yeah.
Kind of moment.
Yeah, could be something like that. Yeah. Either way, the bros are free. They're about to cause some kind of havoc, I'm sure. But getting into the chapter, we got this crazy conclusion to the Kaido versus Luffy conflict here. And this flashback was cool. A lot of people were upset that this is all the flashback that we got for Kaido before he was defeated, but I still think that there's more Kaido flashback that we're going to get, personally. I think that the next chapter could open up with more Kaido flashback, before some kind of like final word or something. Maybe like the flashback is going on like while Luffy is walking up to him after defeating him, and then like the flashback ends so that Kaido can say like some kind of last minute thing to Luffy before like losing consciousness or some shit. I could totally see it happening like that. Either way, I think that if not though, then this was like a super glossed over like Kaido backstory. It's like you think about like the end of like Whole Cake Island when he was beating fucking, or not Whole Cake, but Dressrosa when he was beating like Doflamingo, and we got like a 5 or 7 chapter flashback for Doflamingo. Yeah, and it's like, man, Kaido's like an even bigger player than fucking Doflamingo was, so you want to assume that we're going to get the same level of attention paid to Kaido's origin, at least, as Doflamingo, especially because Doflamingo was a direct subordinate of Kaido anyway. Maybe he just had more story to tell. I don't want to believe that, because Kaido's like a whole Yonko and has had the kind of experiences in this world that you could totally just write a spin-off series for. Like all of these characters could have spin-off series, but Kaido is like a Yonko. Like, he deserves, a good backstory, delivery. You know what I mean? So I want to assume that there's more for him. Someone made a fucking funny joke about how like this isn't even his flashback. This is just his life flashing before his eyes. You know, as Luffy like defeats him or whatever. And I was like, that's a cool way to think about it too. But
oh man, we get even more flashbacks.
I would love it if we got more Kaido flashbacks. And like I said, I could totally see that scene where like the next chapter just goes into more Kaido flashback, or maybe his whole flashback is just like thrown, you know, in and out, like back and forth throughout the rest of this arc for one reason or another. But I definitely don't want his flashback to be over after that. I feel like I'd be super disappointed if this is all we got.
Yeah, no, it'd be rough. But like of this flashback, I thought it was really effective.
It was really cool.
Showed that like Kaido is obsessed with war and weapons and manufacture because he's been a soldier since he was 10, if not younger.
Yeah, earlier than that, he was the best soldier by the time he was 10. So yeah, he's been whooping ass.
Soldier.
Yeah, and so it's child like, soldiers. Damn. Yeah, so it's like super deep. And it looks like they're just like, all right, great. Yeah, Kaido, keep being that ultimate soldier that runs amok wherever our troops touch down at. And then later they're like, and he's like, nah, fuck that. Like, why do we gotta obey the Celestial Dragons anyway? Because it's cool, you know, like we find out about this Vodka Town play or Vodka Kingdom place, and like our country can't stop going to war now. We have to win and loot the enemy to pay our heavenly tribute. So they're constantly in a state of war because they're like the Celestial Dragons, like zealots, to like accomplish their goals and get the, you know, the loot and the benefits from wherever they send them. You know what I mean? Like, do this in the name of the Celestial Dragon. So naturally, some or a lot of these soldiers would probably have a similar outlook as Kaido. Like, why the fuck are we doing this just to appease these Celestial Dragons that never get their hands dirty anyway? That's like super, like, you know, diametrically opposing to our lifestyle. We do all the fucking hard work. Like, fuck these Celestial Dragon guys. Makes sense that Kaido would be like, fuck all that. And so then 5 years later or however long later, they're like, hey, we're sending you to the Navy. Like, we're you know. And it's like, why should I do that? And it's like, because we don't know what to fucking do with you over here. You're like the strongest dude ever with a completely different philosophy than us. That's like a fucking time bomb for our situation over here.
You're too belligerent.
Yeah, like we got to get you.
Deal with your ass.
Yeah, we got to get you out of here before you fuck the money up. You know what I mean?
How are we gonna reprimand you when you can just smoke all of us?
Yep. And so he fucking goes with them. And then escapes back and forth, gets caught and escapes, but gets caught whenever he's hungry so that he can get, you know, like 3 squares and a cot or whatever. And he's like, hey, man, a prison ship, not a cafeteria. He had 70 million bounty when he was fucking 10 or 15 or 15. Some shit.
Yeah, he was like 15 at the time.
That's gross.
No, it's amazing. This guy, also his face has changed so much over, like, this guy's like 56, right? I like that. I really like that his face like changed over time, really aged, and like, you know, the distinctiveness of like the horns and stuff, and like the long black hair and the bagua. Like, great, love that. I really like that. It's just like it's nice to see him at various stages that look reasonable for age,
right?
And especially in a series as wacky as One Piece,
right? And
it's just like, that's really solid. I think it's interesting, like on page 3, he's like, "Why does anyone bother to obey these celestial dragons?" He's like, the world government will take away our human rights," and he's like, "I mean, we're constantly at war. Like, what good are those human rights anyway?"
Right, exactly.
And it's just like that's a perfect picture of colonialism, right? Like the places that have the most war are the ones that are also usually being actively drained by the rest of the global community more often than not.
Right. And then he breaks out of the... Oh, sorry. Keep going.
I mean, I was just thinking about what limited knowledge I know about like the Middle East or like South Africa or South America, where like there's all these conflicts, but like they're mostly driven by like corporations and like military producers and like military goods producers and stuff.
Right.
And like how like the US gave weapons to the Taliban for a long time so that they wouldn't have that sort of like democratic process, despite us doing wars for democracy, that kind of thing. It's just like Yeah, all right, I see
Yeah,
you. Like
all the political mumbo jumbo, like in and out of the sending of troops to like die for like shitty
anywhere.
reasons. Yeah, anywhere is
Yeah.
just like a very good reason to defect away from your government. And it's cool that Kaido has the means to do so, being as strong as he is. So they tried to
Mm-hmm.
send him over to the Navy because he was being like too volatile or whatever over in his kingdom. And then he escapes, goes back, escapes a couple times before knowledge of that gets around the world, and Whitebeard invites him to the Rocks Pirates. So now he's got a team of people that are more so aligned with his philosophy. And then Garp and Roger beat their ass, and then now they're disbanded. And he's like, "Fuck it! Now that I'm up, you know what I mean, and I have all this clout, I'm about to just make my own team, and then we're going to stick our philosophy to the man, and directly oppose the government, and in a way to kind of like get back for all of the bullshit that he kind of
Yeah.
like had them go through." And it's like, no, I'm going to make a world. What does he say? He said, "We're going to take all these pampered, noble-born rulers and drag them off their ivory thrones down to the battlefield with us. That's what I call equality and freedom. Come get them hands dirty. You know what I'm saying? You're going to fight the battles you
Mm-hmm.
fucking sent us out to fight for you. Now that I'm on top and I'm coming for you directly." So it all makes sense as far as his motivations on how he got here. I just need a little bit more gaps filled in the like fluffier, for the fluff or whatever of the
Mm-hmm.
flashback, because it seems like we have all the major points, from 10 years old to like where we are now. But like there's just so much more story to tell inside of Kaido. It's like I'm trying to see all the nuances and all the little, subtle like bits and pieces that made this character who he is. So I I,
I
I really hope we get that eventually.
I think this is great because like Kaido, it's hard to relate to a character like him sometimes, but like seeing this like seeing his like growing environment and
Yeah,
then also like hey, his anti-government stuff. That's great. I love that.
yeah,
I think that the following flashbacks cuz like they have moments where like 46 years ago, 44 years ago, I feel like there's going to be a further countdown.
yeah.
And I want there to be because I want to see him lose his way,
Right,
right? Because he's like, you can see at the end of this one, the tipping point is a world where only war decides a man's true worth, right?
yeah.
And he's like, that's where he's like getting on the wrong path.
Right,
And
and
it's
we've
like,
actually seen a little bit of what you're talking about in earlier flashbacks of Kaido in Wano, because like this panel on page 6, where he's like a world where only war decides a man's true worth, I feel like is before he got to Wano and occupied it, maybe, or
mm-hmm,
maybe he's in Wano right now. Either way, this is like at like the start of his independence, his like true independence as a pirate and a Yonko, I want to say. So then he comes to occupy Wano, and we get all of the Odin storytelling that we've kind of already gotten in flashbacks earlier in the arc. And that's where we got all of his pathos, you know what I mean? All of the relatability inside of like how he wants to do things honorably according to his will, but he had like shisty homeboys like Orochi and the Shapeshifter that had
yeah.
Bonclay's devil fruit that like, distracted Odin and like made him defeat him in a way that wasn't honorable, that stuck with him all that time. Like that's relatable stuff. Like that's good pathos that we have for
Mm-hmm.
Kaido, but we still just need more gaps filled in because it just isn't his whole story. And he's one of the more interesting backstories in the last while that we've all been wanting to see. So
Yes. I want to see where he stops viewing like he's talking about like war is where a man's worth is measured.
mhm,
But like I want to know cuz like when he was young, he's like why are we fighting?
mhm,
But like I want to see the point where he is influenced by like this witch or like the people around him and like forgets who's in the war that like the way of life in the warlike world that he's creating, like who are the targets, who is the enemy. It stopped being the government and it's like who is it, why is it these people,
yeah,
like why are you waging this way of life on these people, like
right,
that's what I want to know.
yeah. I want to know that too.
Also,
Fuck
what's up
it.
with this witch? Like, I remember she was there to like lead Orochi down the dark path, and she's doing a very similar thing with Kaido, talking about like humans are animals, might makes right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kaido killed this chick for for distracting Odin during their fight. I can't remember, but I remember like when we were getting the flashback where Odin had just slashed Kaido in the chest and was going to go deliver some more damage, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Haha, Momonosuke," and he's like, "Huh?" And then fucking Kaido smashes him with the Bagua, and he's like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? And he fucking outright killed the CP0 member who did the same thing that when he interrupted, Luffy and his fight. So I want to assume that he killed this chick after distracting him with Odin, because one, like, Bon Clay has her ability now, so we know that she died and the ability regrew in another fruit and Bon Clay ate it, so he had to have died. So I think we can safely assume that Kaido killed her. I don't remember the exact moment when that happened in the story, but it's a safe assumption to make, I want to say. But I don't remember why she was there in the first place.
Yeah. She was kind of like a elusive, mysterious, like, malevolent force, especially with, like, that, like, she's got that Junji Ito cursed headband where, like, the two candles in the headband with, like, the nail and stuff. It's like, I was like, all right, what's your deal?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the other CP0 dude's like, all right, I'm out of here. This motherfucker's about to go down. It's time to go report back to my people about what happened or something or whatever.
My boss got killed. I'm out of here.
Oh, before we even go into that, I really like this last interaction between King and Kaido, because you definitely want to leave a flashback like this, like on a note like this between the captain and the right hand. I like that device used going back into the present time, because like that's what it comes down to. It's like these are the two that are like, representing, Kaido's philosophy the most. So you definitely want to end it on that note, just to like reestablish that connection that they have. But he's like, I wonder where that kid heard it. Yamato dropped Joy Boy's name. Apparently Odin's desire to open the country is meant to welcome Joy Boy. If he's the same as the man you're waiting for, King, then I think I know who he is. And then it goes back again as he's getting fucking punched down through Onigashima, and he finishes the thought. It's like, King, I think I know who Joy Boy is. Who is he? He's the man who shows up to beat me in the future. And like that's just a really cool thing to say. But then King goes, in that case, I suppose we'll never meet him because you're unbeatable. And it just like reinforces, King's faith, in Kaido and their relationship as captain and right hands. You know what I mean?
Like so, true admiration.
Yeah, like that's just a cool like vibe to get inside of a pirate crew. Even though it's quick and subtle, it just has so much impact inside of their relationship and their dynamic as captain and first mate. So I loved that there too.
It's like a soft thing, bordering on arrogance, and I love that, especially out of villains. Like I like the kind of like gentle arrogance, because like if you're loud and abrasive and you're like I'm the best, odds are you're like the weakest motherfucker there.
Right.
Like
arrogance is cool or whatever, but arrogance that serves multiple purposes is always going to slap harder, especially when one of them is like a wholesome angle to it. You know what I mean? That just makes you appreciate the characters involved more, at least for me.
Yeah. I really liked on like 12-13, like that center thing where like Luffy's like a world and he's like smashing down on Kaido. There's like the flame armor around him, and then like you go zoom through to like 16 and you can see the outline of his giant flame armor. And I'm like, he knocked a man out of his own flame armor.
Oh, I thought he was punching him down into Onigashima, and that was the hole left over from Kaido passing through the structure. I thought he punched him so hard that in his coiled state, he hit Onigashima hard enough to just completely go through it in the exact same shape that he ran into it as.
I have no idea which one's which.
Yeah, me neither. Now that you bring that up,
really good.
Yeah,
I like both. Oh man,
he definitely does not have the molten magma Susanoo anymore after that panel, though. So you could be right too. But I just originally pictured it as like a Looney Tunes ass, like crater, punch you through a fucking wall, and now the wall is like the exact shape of your body and shit. Like. I saw it like that.
Oh man, no, I totally see that, especially with all like the Toontown stuff that he's been pulling recently too.
Right? Yeah, you never know.
But like slapping a man so hard he gets flung out of his Susanoo, like that's hurt. That's
always hard.
Mark.
Yeah, I mean that at least happened. Absolutely, we know that happened. I just don't know if the drawing on 16 is a representation of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whew.
but yeah, good shit though. So yeah, Kaido's out of here. We got more image, we got more panels of the lanterns with the prayers on them. Beat the scary dragon man. It's just like, oh, it happened. It happened, young boy or girl. Like your dream came
Bring
true, and this
bring
motherfucker
the
is out of
Kazuki
here.
clan back.
Yeah, what'd you say?
Oh man. Oh, I'm just reading the lanterns
Oh,
now.
bring the Kozuki
Uh
clan back. Yeah, all that shit's happening. Your dreams have come true. It feels
Making my
amazing.
dreams come true. Except for seeing
Yes.
your parents, kids. Sorry, page 15. Um,
Yeah.
they're dead.
Oh, wait, page 15?
Page 15 is like, I want to see mommy. And I'm just like,
Oh
probably not in this
no.
series, bro. My
Yeah, if
bad.
mommy's not there to the point where you have to write this on your lantern, like she probably ain't coming back. Luffy can't do that one.
Law is only one man.
Unless the mom
Uh,
is a prisoner
and
in
working.
in the mines or whatever, then you could probably see
Oh.
mommy again. Yeah.
Hey, optimistic
Yeah.
choices.
Right.
Man, I really liked this.
Yeah.
There's interesting like the kind of chaotic parts like cutting to like everybody. I'm glad that like Law's okay. Scratchman, Apu's still alive.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Um,
Yeah.
like the
It's One
Bear
Piece,
Man
man. Everybody's alive.
from the Kid Pirates is still kicking. Beppo. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, Beppo. Um, and I like that Momo managed at the last second to like manifest the clouds and like get Onigashima and like gently set it
Yep.
aside. I'm like,
It looks like when the flames come out, I don't know if it's just the perspective on the spread, but on
on
12 and
12?
13, yeah, cuz like come forth flame clouds, the flames shoot out. Yamato's like holy shit. Momonosuke's like holy shit. And then the you see the flame cloud around Onigashima and you see
Yeah.
Momo on the right side of it. And then you have
Yeah.
like action lines that are like coming from the left side of the panel implying like motion towards the right side of the panel as if like Momonosuke is like dragging it like forward at a high speed almost. It says swoop and shit. So like he
Yeah.
like ran up, wrapped the cloud around it and is now like pulling it like away
Like a
from
reindeer.
or something. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, does that mean that Luffy didn't punch Kaido through Onigashima? No, he just punched him
Oh.
straight down to the ground. So wait, I think you're totally right. I think that white outline on
Gonna mark that one on
16.
the board.
Yeah, I think that white outline on 16 is just him punching Kaido out of his Susanoo. Then I think that might be confirmation for it because it looks like
He gets
looks like
spiked harder
Momonosuke
than a
got
volleyball in Haikyuu.
yeah, it looks like Momonosuke got Onigashima out of the way of the
Hey,
punch
love
and
that.
and Kaido's trajectory. Yeah, which
He
is
might
pretty
be
cool.
buried in the ground regardless.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. He punches him.
because
Oh yeah, he already hit the ground. Okay. So he punches him on 15. He's flying. He explodes onto the ground. I want to see mommy on the lantern. And then the next fucking panel is, the indent of his body hitting the ground.
He got cratered.
Yeah, so he's still. I still think that this is just
Still tracks.
an outline of his body running into something, and
man.
going through it. But like, what is he? So like, what does he land on then? Wait a minute. So did he go through Onigashima then? Because wait,
Is this water?
No, because he's clearly like laying on the ground in the last page.
Because that's Momo.
Oh, you're totally right.
So
you're
did
totally
Kaido
right.
get knocked into the ocean and to drown?
Oh shit. Oh my god.
Shit. I think.
Did he punch him straight down into water? Hold on.
Did Luffy finally kill a man?
Oh shit. Or at least, use an attack that would have killed it, but maybe like someone comes and grabs his body and prevents him from drowning. Or maybe Kaido can't drown. Yeah.
But devil fruit users can't swim.
That's right. But then you have you have devil fruit users
Is this murder or is this like the whole Batman Arkham Asylum thing? It's like, I didn't kill him, his internal bleeding did.
Right.
Like...
Well, okay, so you have fucking Jack who ran up on Zoe and attacked everybody in Zoe, and then Zunisha fucking like backhanded him and all of their troops into the water. And then Jack just kind of like sat down there, like not able to swim, but not able to drown either because he's like half fishman or some shit. So he has gills and can just breathe underwater despite not being able to swim. So then he eventually got swooped up by other non-devil fruit users and saved and then brought back to Wano or whatever. So maybe it's a similar situation with Kaido where Kaido is half fishman or some shit and can't drown because otherwise why wouldn't he just jump in the water to kill himself? All those times that he was trying, because that's how his character was introduced. Like he's been jumping off of a sky island trying to kill himself for who knows how long. And it's like, well, why wouldn't you just jump in the water unless you just couldn't drown and you knew that? So like either way though, whether Kaido can breathe underwater or not, Luffy doesn't know that and still punched him straight down into water anyway. So, he's still willing to murder or at least deal damage that he knows a devil fruit user should not be able to withstand, whether he gets saved or not. Like Luffy still was on fuck it mode, you know what I'm saying? Which is just like crazy to think about. But I don't think Luffy's ever like specifically said like I don't want to kill anyone. He just like
Nika
doesn't.
just pulled a Nike. Just do it.
Yeah, he just like Luffy kind of just doesn't kill people, even though he hasn't like at least I don't remember a time where he outwardly said like we're not killers. We're not trying to kill nobody. Like I feel like he's like utilitarian in that way. Like if you gotta go, you gotta
Team
go.
Rocket thing where he punches them so hard and they become like a little glittering star in the background. I feel like that's one of the things. Like Luffy doesn't really kill. He beats the pants off people.
Yeah, who knows if they'll survive? But he's not like actually trying to kill nobody. Probably.
I'm not here for the coup de grace. Yeah. I'm just here for the fight to be over.
Right. Type shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So like Luffy is like Luffy seems like cooked, but at the same time there's the festival going background and like the little music notes for the tromp tromp tromp.
Yeah.
And part of me remembers like the Nika warrior like dancing around a fire and all that stuff. So I wonder if like the festival fun energy is going to like help revive him.
Ooh, it could be something like that. It could be like we could also Oda could give us like a direct panel parallel to I think it was I don't remember what arc it's in, but it's the single page like splash double page spread where like there's and he's got like the silhouette outline, you know what I mean?
Thing
like above the fire or whatever that people have been bringing up since the Nika stuff kind of came back. And then, we got the small drawing of like, silhouette Nika or whatever earlier in the arc that people were using as a parallel to that Jaya panel or whatever. But like now I think that Oda might just straight up give us the Luffy as Nico, equivalent panel from Jaya in Wano now that the fight is over. Like we'll probably see him like at the festival jumping over another fire or something like that, like actually as Nika this time. In a new silhouette drawing. I think that would be dope. But now that this... Oh, yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Since he's unconscious, what if they find him splayed on the ground just in that kind of pose?
Oh, shit.
And then they're like... And then after he's, like, healed and recuperated, he can, like, do the little dance around the fire or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
A barbecue. He's like, Kaido's gone, let's throw a feast.
Yeah,
Woo!
yeah. They're definitely about to turn up, but, like, maybe not, though, because it's like the world... the Navy... has been talking about mobilizing troops towards Wano. We never know who could pull up now that the Luffy versus Kaido conflict is over. You definitely have like some Sun Tzu Art of War shit going on here where it's like, enemy of my enemy is my friend, let them duke it out, and then when either side wins, the other side will be so tired because of the extreme difficulty, we can come in and, wipe the rest of the survivors out. Very common war tactic whenever there's multiple factions involved, so you never know who could pull up to this situation. Revolutionaries, other random pirate crews, Straw Hat Grand Fleet, Navy, a lot of things are on the table. I don't know how much sense it makes for everyone that I just listed to pull up, but like at least the Navy is planning on doing something here. You know what I mean? So
great Zunisha.
We got Zunisha and shit.
Brother Ketchup.
Yeah, we still got like a lot more like crazy shit that's going to happen even with the defeat of Kaido. So like that's what I've been waiting to get to. I already knew that Kaido was going to get his ass beat by the end of the arc. King and Queen were going to get beat by Zoro and Sanji. Like, we already knew all these things. It was up in the air for a little bit because of the chaos of the war, constantly shuffling people around the battlefield and causing different matchups. But at the end of the day, we had, like, it in the back of our head, like, this is how the conflict resolution is going to go. Sanji beats Queen. Zoro beats King, Luffy beats Kaido. That's for sure. The uncertainty comes from what happens afterwards when we have all of these other, you know, factions in play and players on the chessboard. So
it's boiled down to this point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Zoro kills Kaido gang.
Never, like, that just never made, like, any sense to me.
that.
It was, like, a cool thing to think about, like, when they were bringing up all the parallels to Ryuma and, like, all of this stuff and, like, Monster and
Dreams are
shit.
sweet,
It was fun, but, like, it never actually made sense, you know? But, yeah. I'm glad that I was never on either side of that agenda war, because that shit is very silly.
I wasn't. I don't think I was even on Twitter.
Yeah, that
at
shit
that
is.
point. You're like, hey,
That shit is
no,
ridiculous.
get a Twitter, and I'm like, all right. I'm like, what's this?
Yeah.
Oh, it's already over. Cool.
Yeah.
I don't need to deal with this.
Awesome. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's all.
chapter.
Yeah, great chapter. Can't wait for the next one, of course. But I think that's all I had. I think we're on break next week anyway. But yeah, that's all I had for One Piece this week, I think. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did, we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let us know down in the comments section, where you can also let us know anything that we missed, anything that you want to add, any kind of conversation that you want to have will be continued in the comments section throughout the rest of the week. While you're down there, check our description section for links to follow us on any of our individual social media accounts like Twitter. Join our ever-growing Discord community. Listen to the Project Manga Podcast wherever you normally listen to your podcasts, and slap a like on the video. And subscribe if you're new here, because again, we upload every single week. The conversations are always big, and they're always about your favorite manga. So stay a while, okay? But oh yeah, and check out our Patreon too if you want to support what we do directly, because we got things like
Even more series.
early access to content and other podcasts where we review other manga from different magazines, including Weekly Shonen Jump, Jump Plus, and Weekly Shonen Magazine. But with all that said, I think that'll do it for this episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Wrapping up, I'm Nox.
I'm Bella Yenis.
We'll catch y'all next time.